I reincarnated as the villainous rich second generation. What? He traveled through time and space to the novel he was reading, and became the second generation rich villain in the novel. He despised his childhood sweetheart who admired him, and was willing to lick the high-ranking heroine, but was finally slapped in the face by the heroine. Ling couldn't help but swear angrily. With his status and position, why should he be a licker? Chapter 1, I want to be a simp. In Chening City, at 10 a.m., the sun was shining brightly. Inside a villa spanning over 1,000 square meters, a handsome young man was lying on the living room sofa, his eyes slightly squinted as if he were asleep. An elderly butler in a suit stood nearby and softly said, "Young Master Shu, it's time for us to head to Miss Han's birthday party." Ling, still half asleep, heard the voice and slowly opened his eyes in a daze. He rubbed his eyes and looked around, confused, muttering, "Birthday party? What birthday party?" Before Ling could fully gather his thoughts, a flood of memories surged into his mind, causing a sharp pain in his brain. Once the pain faded, Ling's face was filled with shock. He had transmigrated. Moreover, he had transmigrated into the very novel he was reading, becoming the villainous rich second generation who was slapped in the face by the protagonist. The novel was called The Bodyguard of the Beautiful CEO, set in the city of Chening. The protagonist, Xiao Ming, was a retired assassin who became a bodyguard. Xiao Ming, with his years of assassin training, was skilled in martial arts, medicine, music, and almost everything else. As he returned to the city, he attracted countless women, pure school beauties, icy CEOs, arrogant young ladies, fiery policewomen. But the villain in the story, Ling, was the complete opposite. Because of his repeated attempts to suck up, harass the main female character, Han Xinyun, he not only lost the affection of his childhood sweetheart, Lin Yao, but also got repeatedly humiliated by the protagonist, leading to his eventual downfall. When Ling first saw the villain's name, which was the same as his, he felt a bit annoyed, but he never expected that he would actually become that very villain in the story. According to the original plot, Ling was about to attend Han Xinyun's birthday party, where he would present a bouquet of 999 roses as a confession. Naturally, Han Xinyun, who looked down on him, would coldly reject him. Refusing to give up, Ling would persist in harassing her, which would lead to an encounter with the protagonist, Xiao Ming. Ling would be humiliated, beaten, and thrown out of the party. Effing hell! I want to be a simp and get slapped in the face by the protagonist. Thinking about his tragic future, Ling couldn't help but curse. Ding! Villain system successfully bound. Please use this system to become a villain with both bravery and strategy, avoiding turning this story into a brainless little white novel. Upon hearing the voice in his mind, Ling's eyes lit up. As a seasoned novel reader, Ling knew exactly what a system was. With the help of this golden finger, he might be able to change his fate of family destruction. Ling suppressed his excitement and began checking the system's functions. The rules of the villain system are simple. You can increase your strength by targeting the female protagonist, stealing opportunities from the male protagonist, and making choices at critical plot points. You can gain skills, luck points, and enhance your image. Note, luck points are extremely important. You can gain luck points by suppressing the male protagonist. When your luck points drop to 0, you will be unable to avoid a tragic death. If your luck points surpass the male protagonist's, you can steal all his luck points. Note, do not interfere with major plot points, or you will be punished depending on the severity. After reading the system's instructions, Ling fell into deep thought. The system wasn't invincible. He still had to be careful with every step. Fortunately, having read the original novel, Ling already knew the plot. With the help of the system, it shouldn't be too difficult to surpass the male protagonist's luck points. In conclusion, the key to survival was to use his advantages to break the protagonist Xiao Ming's halo. As for the birthday party in front of him, it was a crucial plot point where the protagonist would act arrogantly and slap people in the face. If Ling didn't go, the system would likely punish him. Ling composed himself and stood up, saying, "Uncle Chen, let us go." With the system's help, he wasn't afraid of a small birthday party. In the Fonyang district of Chening City, at Kai Lin Mountain. On the mountainside, a luxurious estate resembling a castle was sprawling across the land. The spacious yard was filled with numerous tables and chairs, and red wine and delicious food were abundant. Many elegantly dressed men and women were mingling, toasting, and chatting. At that moment, a Rolls-Royce Cullinan pulled into the estate, and a young man in a suit stepped out of the car. Xu Ling straightened his collar, scanned the guests, and soon his gaze landed on the star of the day, Han Xinyun. As the main female lead of a city-based romance novel, Han Xinyun was an absolute beauty. Her fair skin and bright eyes made her far more stunning than even the most popular actresses of the time. However, her cold demeanor and indifferent eyes gave off an air of aloofness, making it feel like she was shutting people out from 1,000 miles away. When she saw Xu Ling arrive, a flash of disgust appeared in Han Xinyun's eyes. The two were around the same age. Han Xinyun had founded a company after graduating from university, and her cosmetics brand was quite well known. In contrast, Xu Ling was just relying on his family's wealth, living a life of indulgence and doing nothing productive, a perfect example of a useless rich second generation. It wasn't that Han Xinyun thought highly of herself, but any woman with vision would never look at a wasteful rich second generation like Xu Ling. If it weren't for the fact that she needed to distance herself from him, Han Xinyun wouldn't have gone out of her way to send him an invitation. Xu Ling actually showed up at Miss An's birthday party. Of course, as a simp, how could he miss such a great opportunity? Xu Ling's not bad looking himself, so why is he chasing after Miss Han? The guests whispered among themselves, eagerly waiting to watch Xu Ling make a fool of himself. However, to everyone's surprise, Xu Ling didn't rush to find Han Xinyun. Instead, he calmly found his seat and sat down. Hearing their whispers, Xu Ling felt irritated. No matter how beautiful Han Xinyun was, he wasn't going to be a simp. He shifted his gaze from Han Xinyun and looked toward a girl sitting in the corner. The girl was Lin Yao, Xu Ling's childhood sweetheart and Han Xinyun's close friend. In the original novel, the Lin and Xu families were old friends, and Lin Yao had been secretly in love with Xu Ling for a long time. She was just as beautiful as Han Xinyun. However, like a blind fool, Xu Ling had never noticed Lin Yao's feelings. Instead, he became a simp, constantly chasing after Han Xinyun. As a result, Lin Yao gave up on him and turned to the protagonist, Xiao Ming. Simping gets you nothing in the end. Xu Ling sighed inwardly. Now that he had replaced the original character, he absolutely couldn't let this pure, devoted girl slip away. Lin Yao noticed Xu Ling's gaze. She lowered her head shyly, but then a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. It must be my imagination. Brother Ling must be focused on Sister Xinyun now. Lin Yao wished so much that Xu Ling would notice her, but Xu Ling was completely obsessed with his best friend, Han Xinyun. All she could do was bless them. Chapter 2, Their Confession. The birthday party quickly came to an end, and Xu Ling spent the entire time silently drinking and eating cake, not once approaching Han Xinyun to say a word. As the party was about to break up, Han Xinyun couldn't help but feel puzzled. In the past, Xu Ling would have eagerly come over to fawn over her, but today, he hadn't made a single move. What was going on? What Han Xinyun didn't know was that the Xu Ling in front of her was no longer the same person. After a moment of hesitation, Han Xinyun suddenly walked over to Xu Ling's side, her voice cold as she said, "Xu Ling, I sent you an invitation because I want to make something clear. I've hired a bodyguard who is highly skilled. If you dare to harass me again, he will teach you a lesson." In the past, Han Xinyun had to endure Xu Ling's persistent pestering, putting up with him like an annoying fly. But now, things were different. Xu Ling, however, remained indifferent, not responding to Han Xinyun at all. He knew that this highly skilled bodyguard was none other than the protagonist, Xiao Ming, who was currently hiding somewhere in the estate, unnoticed by the ordinary guests. If Xu Ling had gone straight to Han Xinyun as he usually would, he would have been beaten up and thrown out by Xiao Ming. "You?" Seeing that Xu Ling completely ignored her, Han Xinyun furrowed her brows in confusion, a hint of frustration creeping in. The guests watching the drama were shocked. Normally, it was Xu Ling who was ignored, but today, it was Han Xinyun who was being treated like this. In the past, Xu Ling would have been relentless in his pursuit, never responding so coldly to Han Xinyun. Having received no reply, Han Xinyun felt awkward, and with a hint of frustration, she asked, "What is your game? Or have you really changed?" Han Xinyun stared at Xu Ling's eyes, but to her surprise, his indifference didn't seem like an act. Without even lifting his eyelids, Xu Ling calmly replied, "You can say I've changed." Since Xu Ling had transmigrated, even if they beat him to death or threw him out of the estate, he would never go back to being Han Xinyun's simp. Hearing Xu Ling's flat response, Han Xinyun suddenly felt a sense of discomfort. She felt a strange sense of loss she couldn't quite explain. The once simping second-generation rich boy was now treating her with this attitude. Not only Han Xinyun, but the other guests also found it hard to believe Xu Ling's sudden change. No, this isn't possible. He's acting too strange today. When something unusual happens, there's always a catch. Han Xinyun thought it over carefully, and she suddenly realized Xu Ling must have an ulterior motive. After some thought, she figured out the only possibility. Xu Ling, you're not trying to attract my attention in some other way, are you? Han Xinyun's tone was firm. To be honest, she didn't believe for a second that Xu Ling had truly changed. Xu Ling felt a surge of anger at her words. What did she mean, attracting her attention? Was not being a simp supposed to be a way to attract her attention? It had to be said, Han Xinyun's sense of self-importance was still too inflated. Xu Ling frowned and looked at Han Xinyun, his voice cold. Miss Han, only someone who hates another would think of their pursuit as harassment. I know you hate me, so I chose to give up. But I didn't expect that when I gave up on you, even speaking a single word, you would still define it as me trying to get your attention. Han Xinyun's face flushed with embarrassment. She was caught between awkwardness and frustration. She wanted to retort but didn't know where to begin. Because Xu Ling hadn't said anything wrong. It had always been her, putting on a one-woman show, and her constant suspicion now seemed utterly ridiculous. That said, thinking about the once obedient Xu Ling, Han Xinyun still found his behavior today a bit hard to grasp. She felt as though there was a stone lodged in her chest, and with no way to counter Xu Ling, she finally spoke out, somewhat pitifully, Xu Ling, no matter what, I'll never like someone like you. Ding! Han Xinyun has expressed her hatred towards you. Please make a choice in this critical plot. Choice 1, keep simping until the end, apologize to Han Xinyun and confess with the gift you prepared reward, hall-level martial art, Xian Yarn Palm. Choice 2, give up on Han Xinyun and confess to Lin Yao, who has always admired you, with the gift you prepared reward, 50 image points. Compared to the first option, the second one offered a much less tempting reward. But without hesitation, Xu Ling chose the second option. What kind of joke was that? Xu Ling had just offended Han Xinyun. To apologize and then confess? That was like asking for death. Besides, Xu Ling didn't want to be a simp anymore. The best choice was to confess to his childhood sweetheart, Lin Yao, who shared his feelings. Ding! Choice successful. Reward, 50 image points can be exchanged for villain points to upgrade skills and attributes. In the eyes of all the guests, Xu Ling suddenly stood up and walked directly to Lin Yao, who was sitting in the corner. Lin Yao froze when she saw Xu Ling approach, her heart racing uncontrollably. Xiao Yao, I know you've always liked me. I've ignored you in the past, but now, will you accept the changed version of me? Xu Ling knelt on one knee in front of Lin Yao, pulling out a beautifully crafted gift box from his pocket. Inside was a luxurious Cartier necklace. Above them, the sound of a helicopter's engine echoed as rose petals began to fall like rain. Staff members, who had been waiting for the right moment, entered the scene and quickly arranged 999 roses in a heart shape around the two. A huge banner was lowered from the helicopter above, and the words, Xiao Yao, I like you, were boldly displayed. Lin Yao covered her mouth in disbelief, tears welling up in her eyes. From the roses to the massive banner, it was clear that Xu Ling had carefully prepared everything. The thing she had always dreamed of was now becoming a reality. Chapter 3, Strategy Successful. Ling, I'm not dreaming, am I? Xiao Yao, if this is a dream, I'll confess again when you wake up. Xu Ling looked up at Lin Yao, his eyes filled with sincerity. Tears shimmered in Lin Yao's eyes as she gently took the necklace from Xu Ling's hands, cradling it like a precious treasure. Ding! Lin Yao is touched by you, affection +8, current affection, 73 deeply fond of you. Ding! Successfully changed Lin Yao's life path, luck value +100, image value +100. Initial strategy success with Lin Yao, reward, master level skill, intimidation. Hearing the string of notifications in his mind, Xu Ling knew that Lin Yao had accepted his confession. Affection levels are divided as follows. 0-10, acquaintances. 10-20, casual friends. 20-30, close friends. 30-40, confidants. 40-50, intimate. 50-60, first love. 60-70, secretly in love. 70-80, deeply fond of you. 80-99, vows of love. 100. Unconditional obedience. Once the affection reaches 60, a basic strategy is considered successful. If it surpasses 80, one can win the heart and body of the heroine. Lin Yao and Xu Ling had been childhood sweethearts, and she had secretly admired him for a long time. Starting with 65 affection, Xu Ling's task was naturally much easier. Now that Xu Ling had succeeded in the initial strategy with Lin Yao, he decided to seize the moment. He stood up, embraced Lin Yao, and kissed her cherry lips. At first, Lin Yao felt shy, but soon, she gently leaned into Xu Ling's arms, silently allowing the kiss. Ding! Lin Yao feels happy, affection +2, current affection, 75. The guests were stunned. No one had expected Xu Ling to confess to Han Xinyun's best friend, Lin Yao. So Xu Ling has always liked Lin Yao? Was he always sticking around Miss Han just to get closer to Lin Yao? I knew it. Xu Ling and Lin Yao grew up together, how could he ignore her and fawn over Miss Han? True lovers finally get together. Lin Yao is clearly the best match for Xu Ling. Wait, didn't he miss and say something earlier? I'll never like someone like Xu Ling. Seeing that Xu Ling, the former simp, had successfully confessed, the guests couldn't help but feel moved and applauded him. Meanwhile, Han Xinyun had already turned red with embarrassment. All her previous arrogance had turned into self-deception in the blink of an eye. Han Xinyun had always had countless people fawning over her, treated as the jewel in the palm of her hand since childhood. This was the first time she had been so humiliated. She had originally planned to warn Xu Ling today, but instead, she had become the laughingstock. Amidst the rain of rose petals, few people even remembered that Han Xinyun was supposed to be the star of the day. As Xu Ling parted from Lin Yao, he glanced at Han Xinyun's flushed, angry face. Checking the heroine's stats through the system, he found that Han Xinyun's affection was at a shocking 20. Xu Ling didn't care though. Let it be negative, he had no intention of ever being Han Xinyun's simp again. After the storm passed, Xu Ling didn't stay in the estate to further provoke Han Xinyun. Instead, he left early with Lin Yao. He instructed the butler, Uncle Chen, to find his own way back while Xu Ling drove the Rolls-Royce Cullinan to take Lin Yao home, using the journey to deepen their connection. Lin Yao had been suppressing her feelings for so long. Now that they had both confessed, years of pent-up emotion poured out, and Xu Ling didn't even have to try to start a conversation. Lin Yao had so much to say to Xu Ling that he couldn't even get a word in, playing the role of both the driver and a listener. Occasionally, he would respond with a few words. When they stopped at a red light, Lin Yao chattered on about their childhood memories, and Xu Ling simply listened quietly, nodding. He looked at her with a sense of affection, as if he were an elder listening to a child's stories. Lin Yao, catching his gaze in the rearview mirror, felt a flush spread across her face. The words she had been about to say were immediately forgotten. Ding! Lin Yao feels shy because of you, affection +2, current affection, 77. Xu Ling paused for a moment. He hadn't done anything, had he? System prompt: after affection exceeds 50, even small actions from you can increase the heroine's affection. Xu Ling suddenly realized that Lin Yao must have been imagining something in her mind just now. When affection reaches a certain level, anything Xu Ling does will be seen as a correct and affectionate gesture by Lin Yao. Lowering the affection would be difficult at this point. With Lin Yao's affection now at 77, she was just 3 points away from reaching the threshold, and Xu Ling could win her heart and body. I've always liked seeing the protagonist slap the villain in novels. Never thought being the villain would be this satisfying. If it had been the protagonist Xia Ming, a mere bodyguard, it would have been impossible to win the heroine Lin Yao's heart in just a few hours like Xu Ling had. Not long after, the Cullinan stopped in front of a villa. Xu Ling quickly got out of the car and opened the door for Lin Yao, maintaining his gentlemanly demeanor. Lin Yao didn't go inside right away. She looked at Xu Ling with reluctance, then softly asked, Ling, would you like to stay for a while before you leave? Xu Ling pondered for a moment. If he wasn't mistaken, Lin Yao lived alone here. With her offering an invitation and her affection now at 77, Xu Ling was almost certain that he could win Lin Yao over tonight. System: is there any punishment for taking the heroine before her affection hits 80? To be cautious, Xu Ling asked the system. System prompt: if the affection is below 80, your actions may be considered overstepping, depending on the situation. If the affection is below 30 and you force your way, the consequences could range from a reduction of affection to 50 to instant death. What? Instant death? Xu Ling broke into a cold sweat at the thought and quickly declined. Xiao Yao, I have something else to do. I can't stay long. If you need anything, we can chat on WeChat. Let us meet tomorrow. Lin Yao looked a little disappointed, a trace of lingering sadness in her eyes. Xu Ling sighed inwardly. He couldn't take such a risk, could he? Besides, with Lin Yao's affection at 77, there was no need to rush. What is his, will always be his. At that moment, Lin Yao stepped forward and gently kissed Xu Ling on the cheek, like a dragonfly skimming the water. Xu Ling was stunned. Previously, he had essentially forced a kiss on Lin Yao in the estate, but this time, it was Lin Yao's initiative. Lin Yao's cheeks flushed, her voice barely audible as she said, Ling, I'm still in disbelief. Are we really together? Her expression suddenly turned slightly guilty, and she softly murmured, will this be a bit unfair to Xinyun Jie? Earlier, in the estate, Lin Yao had only had eyes for Xu Ling, so she didn't even notice Han Xinyun nearby. Now, though, she was wondering whether their public display of affection might make Han Xinyun uncomfortable. Xu Ling chuckled and patted Lin Yao's head, reassuring her, she doesn't like me, and I don't like her. What is there to feel sorry about? Xiao Yao, you have to know, I've always liked you, from the very beginning. Before he could finish, Lin Yao's eyes filled with tears, looking at him with a face full of emotion. Ding! Lin Yao is touched, affection +3, current affection, 80 vows of love. Xu Ling was stunned. He had already prepared to leave, but Lin Yao's affection had hit 80 just like that. Looking at Lin Yao, her face filled with deep affection and even infatuation, Xu Ling couldn't help but feel moved. If he had been the protagonist, this would be the time to be righteous and leave. But alas, Xu Ling was the villain. Chapter 4, Forced to Capture Han Xinyun. Ding! Lin Yao loves you deeply, favorability increased by 10, current favorability, 90. Ding! Complete the game of Lin Yao, and you will be rewarded with the immortal level martial arts Gangquan, plus 100 luck points and 100 image points. Ding! Congratulations on your first complete capture of the heroine. You will be rewarded with the bound skill Long Yarn Ju and the lucky will system will be activated. In the evening, Xu Ling lay on Lin Yao's bed, with her in his arms. The air was filled with spring scenery, and a bloodstain on the white bed sheet was particularly eye-catching. Xu Ling glanced at the sleeping Lin Yao and began to check his current attributes. Host, Xu Ling. Luck value, 200. Cultivation, none. Attributes, physical strength, 10 agility, 10 charm, 15. Image value, 210 to be exchanged for 210. Skills, Grandmaster level intimidation, Gangquan, Dragon Yarn Ju first level. Props, none. Comprehensive score, 756. In terms of attributes, physical strength determines the number of times skills can be released, which is the blue bar. Once it is exhausted, you need to wait until the next day to restore it, or use props to restore it. Agility determines basic speed, reaction, and insight, and can be understood as the divine consciousness in fantasy novels. Only his charm is rather useless, which determines Xu Ling's appearance. It should be mainly used to conquer the heroine. It is said that it can also slightly improve the luck value. Xu Ling was speechless. Can good looks improve one's luck? Does one's worldview follow one's appearance? Moreover, Xu Ling's attributes were pitifully low. As far as he knew, the protagonist Xia Ming had already reached the late yellow rank when he started. The difference between the two was huge. Then there are the skills. Grandmaster level deterrence and Gangquan are not mentioned for now. What is Long Yarn Ju? And it does not require physical strength to release. Xu Ling took a look and found that it was used to improve his combat effectiveness in that aspect. Moreover, every time he used it on a heroine, it could increase her luck value and favorability. It could also continuously improve the heroine's appearance and had the miraculous effect of beautifying and nourishing the skin. The most important thing is that Long Yarn Ju is the only way to improve Xu Ling's cultivation, so he must work hard day and night in the future. Seeing this, Xu Ling suddenly wanted to practice it on Lin Yao beside him, but unfortunately Lin Yao was a virgin after all, and was too weak to be abused by him again. Xu Ling could only suppress his inner restlessness and check his image value and the effect of the lucky wheel. Image points can be exchanged for villain points, or skill points, at a ratio of 10 to 1. The image points will not disappear after the exchange, but they cannot be exchanged again. Every time the exchanged image value exceeds 100, the luck value can be increased by 100 points. According to the system, this is the fastest way for Ling to increase his luck value. As for the lucky wheel, its function is the same as the lottery in the game. Various skills and props can be drawn, and the probability of the draw was clearly informed to Ling. The probability of drawing an item is 89%, the probability of drawing air is 10%, and the probability of drawing a skill is 1%. Since Ling had just opened the lucky wheel, he didn't have a single chance to draw a prize. The lucky wheel system is just a decoration at the moment, so Ling ignores it for now. He first converts 210 image points into 21 villain points, then adds 15 points to physical strength and the other 6 points to charm. Ling's basic stamina is only 10 points, but unleashing a Grandmaster level skill requires 15 points of stamina, and an Immortal level skill requires 20 points. Without adding some stamina, he can't even unleash a single skill. Upgrading skills requires 100 villain points, so Ling can forget about it now. As for why he chose to add some charm, Ling's purpose was simple: to see how much more handsome he could become. After adding points, Ling opened his personal panel again to check it out. Host, Ling. Luck value, 406. Cultivation, none. Attributes, physical strength, 25 agility, 10 charm, 21. Image value, 210. Skills, Grandmaster level intimidation, Gangquan, Dragon Yarn Ju first level. Props, none. Comprehensive score, 784. The overall score only increased by 24, but the luck value increased by 206 points. The image value after exchange exceeded 200, so 200 points of luck value were added. As for the extra 6 points, they should be the result of Ling adding some charm. Not bad. As long as I don't go against Xiaoming now, I won't end up with my family destroyed. Lingji was feeling very proud and was about to fall asleep holding Lin Yao in his arms when suddenly an inopportune system notification sounded in his mind. Ding! Han Xinyun is very grateful to the protagonist Xiaoming, and his favorability increases by 8. The current favorability is 21, and the host's luck value decreases by 100. What the hell? What's going on? Han Xinyun's affection for the protagonist Xiaoming will reduce her luck value. And it will be reduced by a full 100 points. System prompt: every time the heroine increases her favorability towards Xiaoming by 10 points, the host's luck value will be reduced by 50 points. The number 1 heroine Han Xinyun is particularly important, and the punishment for the host will be doubled. Ling reacted immediately. Han Xinyun's favorability towards Xiaoming just exceeded the 20 level. In addition, she was the number 1 female lead, so 100 points of luck were directly deducted from her. Ling originally thought that he could live a safe life by holding Lin Yao in his arms, being a good man and not going against Xiaoming. However, he did not expect that his luck would be deducted if other female protagonists developed a crush on Xiaoming. Now it seems that the system is forcing Ling to continue to be Han Xinyun's bootlicker, forcing him to have a harem and be a scumbag. Damn system, why didn't they tell you earlier that the number 1 heroine must be captured? Thinking back to his pretentious behavior during the day, Ling couldn't help but feel heartbroken. As long as his family wasn't ruined, what was wrong with him licking Han Xinyun? It's fun to show off, but it's a shame to chase your wife. According to the original plot, Han Xinyun's company's cosmetics were suppressed by rival companies. Xiaoming counterattacked and launched a secret recipe for cosmetics with better effects, helping Han Xinyun overcome the difficulties. It should be this plot that made Han Xinyun directly increase her favorability towards Xiaoming by 8 points. Once her favorability towards Xiaoming exceeded 60, Ling was basically finished. But now Han Xinyun's favorability towards Ling is negative, and it is basically impossible for her to develop a favorable impression of him in a short period of time. By the way, there will be another plot about me in 3 days. In the book, my original self also officially becomes an enemy of the protagonist in 3 days. Ling's eyes flashed. He knew the original plot and could change the original outcome in the book with a little trick. If Ling cannot improve Han Xinyun's favorability towards Xiaoming in a short period of time, then he will lower Han Xinyun's favorability towards Xiaoming. The effect will be the same. Brother Ling, what's wrong? Lin Yao was awakened by the noise. She looked at Ling in confusion, her eyes still a little dazed. Seeing this, Ling put his thoughts aside. He rubbed Lin Yao's little face and said softly, "It's nothing. Go back to sleep." Lin Yao murmured, leaned her head on Xu Ling's chest and closed her eyes. After making love for an entire afternoon, both of them were extremely tired and would probably have to sleep until the early hours of tomorrow morning. Chapter 5 Impression Change. 3 days later, at 6:30 in the evening, night slowly fell. Inside the villa, Xu Ling, wrapped in a bath towel and gently shaking the red wine in his hand, sat by the swimming pool and watched Lin Yao playing in the water. Lin Yao wore a bold bikini swimsuit. There was not a speck of fat on her belly. Her fair skin was as delicate as mutton fat jade. She was so beautiful that she looked like a work of art, and no one dared to desecrate her. "Xiao Yao, you are so beautiful." Xu Ling felt a little emotional. It was difficult for ordinary men to even say a word to such a beauty, but she was his woman. "Brother Ling, stop staring at me." Lin Yao's pretty face turned slightly red, and she turned her back, not daring to look directly at Xu Ling. With Lin Yao's personality, it is impossible for her to wear this kind of swimsuit under normal circumstances. Even if she wanted to wear it for Xu Ling alone, she still hesitated for a long time. Xu Ling couldn't help but laugh. He had already touched it, so what else was there that he couldn't see? If Lin Yao hadn't been in poor health and needed a few days' rest after tasting the forbidden fruit, Xu Ling would definitely have had a swim with her in the swimming pool. At this moment, the screen of the mobile phone on the table lit up at an inopportune time. Xu Ling picked up his phone and saw a WeChat message from someone named Liu Zihuan. "Brother Ling, I followed your instructions and helped Han Xinyun successfully bid for the land. I also added the additional conditions you mentioned to the contract. What should I do next?" Xu Ling put away his smile, tapped the screen with his finger and replied, "I'll be there now." After replying to the message, he stood up and started to put on his clothes, and said to Lin Yao, "Xiao Yao, I'm going out for a while, and I will be back around 8 or 9 o'clock. Brother Ling, where are you going? Can't I go with you?" Lin Yao swam to the shore and looked at Xu Ling, blinking her big eyes in confusion. Xu Ling leaned over and kissed Lin Yao on the forehead, and said softly, "Be good, Xiao Yao, I will be back soon." "Well, come back early to have dinner together." Lin Yao nodded obediently. After she finished speaking, she suddenly seemed to think of something, and a blush appeared on her pretty face. She whispered shyly, "Well, Brother Ling, I think my body has almost recovered." Xu Ling instantly understood what Lin Yao meant, and said with a lewd smile, "Wash yourself and wait for me to come back." After 3 days of getting along like glue, Lin Yao's favorability level directly increased to 99. She was completely obsessed with Xu Ling and didn't even need him to take the initiative to mention certain things. Xu Ling had been holding back for 3 days out of concern for Lin Yao's weak health, and now he can finally have meat tonight. Half an hour later, Fengyang District, Taizi Street. This is the most prosperous area in Chening City. There are numerous high-rise buildings, colorful neon lights on the streets, and luxury cars and sports cars often pass by at the crossroads. Every corner shows prosperity. At this moment, outside the Tingyu Pavilion in Ziyu Resort, Han Xinyun, holding a document, knocked on the door nervously. "Come in, the door is not locked." A voice came from inside the door. Han Xinyun pushed open the door and walked into Tingyu Pavilion, saying in a tactful tone, "Director Liu, the additional conditions you mentioned are a bit." She was stunned halfway through her speech because the Director Liu she was talking about was actually pouring tea for a young man with a respectful look on his face. Xu Ling was seen sitting in front of the coffee table in the suite. He took the tea and blew it with an expressionless face, without even looking at Han Xinyun. Although Xu Ling appears to be as calm as a rock, he is actually very panicked inside. If Han Xinyun's favorability rating decreases directly, he will be finished. Now Xu Ling really doesn't want to show off. Han Xinyun's favorability is still negative. If he forcibly licks Han Xinyun, it will not only fail to improve his favorability, but will have the opposite effect. "Xu Ling? Why is it you?" Han Xinyun frowned slightly, not expecting to meet Xu Ling here. Xu Ling's family is extremely powerful, and they have many acquaintances and leaders to help them, which has enabled the Xu family to monopolize 80% of the land rights in Chening City. Almost every land bid will be arranged in advance by the municipal government to the Xu family. Under normal circumstances, this piece of land would also fall into the hands of the Xu family, but today it was actually obtained by Han Xinyun. Before, Han Xinyun felt fortunate and even confused, but now it seems that it was definitely Xu Ling's doing. Xu Ling looked indifferent, as if he had never known Han Xinyun before. He said calmly, "Miss Han, you just mentioned additional conditions. What's wrong?" Don't be fooled by his original identity as a bootlicker. His real background is terrifyingly powerful. In the book, he is the most difficult villain boss to deal with in the early and middle stages of the protagonist Xia Ming. Prince Street is the most prosperous area in Chening City and ranks among the top 3 in the country. In such a prosperous area, more than half of the businesses are owned by Xu Ling's father. As the only son, Xu Ling is treated as a guest of honor by all the merchants here, and this is why Prince Street is called Prince Street. Han Xinyun gnashed her teeth and said angrily, "Xu Ling, stop pretending. You added these additional conditions, didn't you? Turning over 30% of the profits. Why don't you just die?" If the decision maker was Liu Ziwan, Han Xinyun might still be able to discuss it, but if it was Xu Ling, the matter would probably not be as simple as a few additional conditions. "Ms. Han, the so-called additional conditions are just to ask you to pay a little more money. If I'm not mistaken, you will definitely be able to make this money after you get this land." Xu Ling's tone was very confident, because he knew very well what Han Xinyun was going to do with this piece of land, and it would not be a problem to make tens of billions or even hundreds of billions in profit in the future. Han Xinyun looked unhappy. Xu Ling was right. If she could get the land, she would be fully capable of paying a little more money. But the problem is that Han Xinyun can't come up with so much money in a short period of time, and the contract is only valid for 1 month. When she went to the bank to apply for a loan, there was not enough time for approval. "Xu Ling, you know the situation of my company very well. I really need this piece of land. Please don't go too far." Han Xinyun knew very well that Xu Ling was not short of money at all, and he definitely wasn't trying to make things difficult for her just for the money. Xu Ling looked disdainful and sneered, "Too much. People live in this world just for money, and Miss Han is no exception. If I really go too far, Miss Han's small company with a market value of less than 1 billion can be ruined with just a phone call." What Xu Ling said was very realistic and true. Han Xinyun felt like there was something stuck in his throat and couldn't think of any words to refute. With Xu Ling's background, one phone call could indeed bring down Han Xinyun's company. Han Xinyun was standing here just for the money. Recalling their ups and downs of recent years, Han Xinyun couldn't help feeling aggrieved. She was obviously a hardworking and self-reliant woman, but in Xu Ling's mouth, she became a snob who was only interested in money. It's true that Han Xinyun did it for the money, but she wanted to prove to her father and the people around her that a woman can also stand at the top of the world and not just be of ours. "Ms. Han, you don't have to feel wronged, because no one here has ever forced you. If you don't want to accept the additional conditions, you can just turn around and leave." Not only did Xu Ling not show any sympathy to the beautiful woman, but he also added fuel to the fire. Han Xinyun was so angry that her eyes turned red and she wanted to throw away the documents in her hand and leave. However, her cosmetics company was being suppressed by competitors and urgently needed a new product to save the situation. If she could not get the land to build a cosmetics production base, the cosmetics secret recipe given by Xia Ming could not be mass-produced, and her company would likely face bankruptcy. Are all these years of hard work going to go to waste? Seeing Han Xinyun in a dilemma, Xu Ling's expression suddenly eased up a lot. He stood up and walked to Han Xinyun, handed her a cup of tea, and said softly, "Don't worry, I can give you 25 minutes to think about it carefully." Han Xinyun was stunned and suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart. In the past, Xu Ling had always been a synonym for living a life of idleness and waiting for death, and his reputation as a second-generation rich man who licked his boots was well known in the circle. The man in front of him was domineering, cold, and confident. Facing his former goddess, he was not at all soft-hearted, but would give her appropriate care at the critical moment. Han Xinyun stared at Xu Ling blankly. She didn't know if it was an illusion or something, but she always felt that Xu Ling was much more handsome than before. This is not an illusion. Xu Ling, who was already a little handsome, has increased his charm by 6 points. His current appearance is definitely at the level of a male god. Ding! Han Xinyun's impression of you has changed. Her heart is moved. Your favorability increases by 5. Current favorability, 15. Hearing the prompt sound in his mind, Xu Ling was surprised. Can this also improve favorability? Is it that I am too handsome, or is Han Xinyun eager to be conquered? Chapter 6, Goddesses also ask for help. Han Xinyun quickly came to her senses and found that she was actually staring at Xu Ling. Her pretty face blushed. She pushed away Xu Ling's hand, offering her tea, and pretended to be calm. No need for you to pretend, I will think about it myself. Xu Ling couldn't help but laugh. How come this ice beauty who usually kept people at a distance looked a little cute? What are you laughing at? Nothing. Xu Ling didn't care about Han Xinyan's shame and anger. He sat back at the coffee table, looked at the Zegna limited edition watch on his wrist, and started the 25-minute countdown. Remember, you only have 25 minutes. If you can't make a decision, I will look for another company to work with. Seeing Xu Ling's cold expression again, Han Xinyun was furious for a moment, feeling a nameless anger in her heart with nowhere to vent. Damn Xu Ling, if it weren't for the company, I wouldn't want to see your stinky face for even a second. 25 minutes passed, and Xu Ling did not immediately ask Han Xinyun for an answer. Instead, he looked up at the heavy mahogany door in front of him. He knew that it was time for the protagonist Xiao Ming to appear on the stage. Xu Ling would specifically give Han Xinyun 25 minutes, but that was not really to give her time to think. According to the plot in the book, Han Xinyun knew that Liu Ziwan was not a good person and was also Xu Ling's younger brother. She was afraid that Liu Ziwan would have bad intentions, so before entering Tingyu Pavilion, she told Xiao Ming that if she did not come out in half an hour, Xiao Ming would come in to check on the situation. Liu Ziwan is indeed not a good person. When he learned that Han Xinyun would come to bid for the land, he immediately called Xu Ling and suggested that Xu Ling use the land rights issue to force Han Xinyun to submit. Xu Ling readily agreed to Liu Ziwan's idea, and while the land rights were being negotiated at Tingyu Pavilion, he seduced Han Xinyun into drinking tea containing aphrodisiac powder. Half an hour later, Xiao Ming did not choose to sneak in quietly, but broke into Tingyu Pavilion violently. He happened to run into Han Xinyun, who was unconscious. He was so angry that he beat up both Xu Ling and Liu Ziwan, and rescued Han Xinyun to neutralize the effect of the medicine. The current plot development is very different from the original. Not only did Xu Ling not drug Han Xinyun, he also did not touch her. When Xiao Ming crashes into Tingyu Pavilion and sees Han Xinyun, who is unharmed, what expression will he have? Thinking of this, Xu Ling turned to look at Han Xinyun and said, "Miss Han, time is up. What do you think?" Han Xinyun was slightly stunned. Her mind was all on land rights and she didn't pay any attention to the passage of time. Things have come to this, even if Han Xinyun hasn't made up her mind yet, she must give Xu Ling an answer. She sighed, stood up and looked at Xu Ling, and said with an embarrassed look, "Xu Ling, I can raise the money, but handing over 30% of the profits is too much. Is there really no room for negotiation?" Upon hearing this, Xu Ling frowned slightly, looking as if he was in hesitation. After 2 full minutes, he looked at Han Xinyun again and said helplessly, "Ms. Han, considering our past relationship, I can lower the standard of additional conditions for you." Han Xinyun couldn't help but complain in her heart, what does it mean to think of the past relationship? She and Xu Ling didn't have any past relationship. Although she wanted to refute Xu Ling, Han Xinyun knew that this was not the time to think about it. If she could really lower the standards of the additional conditions, she would definitely have the ability to take over the land. Xu Ling didn't say anything else after that, but glanced at his watch inconspicuously. 32 minutes have passed since Han Xinyun entered Tingyu Pavilion. Even if it takes Xiao Ming time to rush in from outside, it should be time. Bang! At this moment, there was a loud noise outside the door, and the heavy mahogany door of the suite was violently broken open. Han Xinyun was so frightened that her face turned pale, thinking that she was being attacked by bandits. Xu Ling was not in a hurry and even took a sip of tea. A young man in casual clothes walked into Tingyu Pavilion and his sharp eyes quickly swept over Xu Ling and Liu Ziwan. Xu Ling was also looking at the young man. This unprepossessing young man was none other than Xiao Ming, the protagonist of the book. If you only look at his appearance, Xiao Ming looks like an ordinary person, but his temperament from the inside out makes it obvious that he is not simple. "Eh? Mr. Han, why are you?" Xiao Ming soon discovered that Han Xinyun was standing not far away and was unharmed. He was stunned and stood there, at a loss as to what to do. When Han Xinyun saw that it was Xiao Ming, he was stunned for a while. After he realized what was going on, he couldn't help but get furious. "Xiao Ming? What are you doing?" Just as Xu Ling agreed to lower the standards for additional conditions, at the critical moment of the negotiation, Xiao Ming unexpectedly broke in like a bandit. Not to mention the impact caused, if Xu Ling got angry and transferred the land rights to other people, Han Xinyun's company would be ruined. Ding! Han Xinyun is very angry. His favorability towards Xiao Ming is reduced by 2. Current favorability, 19. Their host's luck value is increased by 100. The corners of Xu Ling's mouth rose slightly. Knowing the plot in advance, he was like a god's perspective. With a little trick, he could reduce Han Xinyan's favorability towards Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming touched his nose and smiled awkwardly. Boss Han, didn't you say that since you haven't come out for half an hour, you asked me to come in and check on the situation? I asked you to check the situation, not to raid like a bandit. Han Xinyan was so angry that she was stunned. Xiao Ming misinterpreted her meaning and even had such an aggrieved expression. But Mr. Han, wasn't I worried about you when I conducted the raid? Xiao Ming was very depressed. If Han Xinyan had not repeatedly reminded him, he would not have rashly barged into Tingyu Pavilion. You? That's enough. Xu Ling shouted coldly, interrupting their quarrel. He looked at Han Xinyan coldly and said in a deep voice, Miss Han, is he someone you arranged? I. Han Xinyan looked anxious, but didn't know how to explain. Xu Ling's expression became colder and colder, and he said without question, Ms. Han, if there is no basic trust between us, there is no need to talk any further. As he spoke, he stood up suddenly and walked out of Tingyu Pavilion with Liu Ziwan. No, Xu Ling, it's all a misunderstanding. I can give you an explanation. However, no matter what Han Xinyan said, Xu Ling did not stop. Seeing that Xu Ling was about to leave Tingyu Pavilion, Han Xinyan hurried forward and grabbed Xu Ling's hand. She said with a hint of pleading in her tone, Please, Xu Ling, I really need this piece of land. Xu Ling stopped, as if he was touched by Han Xinyan's words. He turned and looked at Han Xinyan, who had an anxious face, and felt a surge of emotion in his heart. It turned out that his former goddess would also pray to others. According to the setting in the book, Han Xinyan has been a strong woman since she was a child. In order to prove herself to her father, she has been working hard to develop the company and has devoted all her efforts. Xu Ling was very clear about this, so he stood up and left confidently. He knew that Han Xinyan would do everything she could to keep him. Ding! Han Xinyan pleads with you, please make a choice at the critical moment. Choice 1, be indifferent to the end, do not lower the standard of additional conditions, and propose conditions for her to fire the bodyguard Xiao Ming, and then hand over the land rights to Han Xinyan. Reward Grandmaster level martial arts bronze skin and iron bones. Option 2, the Prime Minister is tolerant, lower the standard of additional conditions, call the police to deal with Xiao Ming, and then hand over the land rights to Han Xinyan. Reward, Hall of Fame medical skills rejuvenation 9 fingers. After repeatedly confirming the requirements of the two options, Xu Ling was caught in a dilemma. Choose the first one. Without Xiao Ming's obstruction, it will be much easier for Xu Ling to conquer Han Xinyan in the future. However, Han Xinyan still has 19 points of favorability towards Xiao Ming. If Xu Ling now forces her to fire Xiao Ming, it will inevitably cause Han Xinyan's disgust. Choosing the second one will definitely increase Han Xinyan's favorability. However, letting the police deal with Xiao Ming will at most restrict Xiao Ming for a period of time. Xiao Ming will most likely increase Han Xinyan's favorability in the future. After careful consideration, Xu Ling decided to choose the second one. He had only been in this world for a few days, so there was no need to rush. With Xu Ling's terrifying background and the system that improves his own strength, it won't take long for him to crush Xiao Ming to death. For now, he should first improve Han Xinyan's favorability. First of all, let me make it clear that Xu Ling is not lusting after Han Xinyan's body, he is purely after the heroine's luck points and rewards. Chapter 7, I didn't expect to be sentenced to 10 years. Ding! Successfully selected, obtain the Hall of Fame medical skill, 9 fingers of rejuvenation. Xu Ling frowned and looked at Han Xinyan, looking hesitant. After a long while, he seemed to have made a decision, and said in a cold voice, Miss Han, just this once, I can give you the land rights and lower the additional conditions. Xu Ling's voice was emotionless, but Han Xinyan was extremely happy to hear it. After experiencing the feeling of falling from the top of the clouds to the dust and then flying back to the top of the clouds from the dust, she even had an urge to cry. However, Han Xinyan's dignity told her that she could not cry, especially not in front of Xu Ling. Thank you. Han Xinyan's eyes were moist and it took her a long time to utter, thank you. What on earth was this man thinking? He had a cold face and made things difficult for her, but in the end he still agreed to give her the land rights. Perhaps Han Xinyan couldn't guess what Xu Ling was thinking, but she felt that Xu Ling seemed to have changed. He was no longer the good-for-nothing second-generation rich guy in her impression. Ding! Change Han Xinyan's impression of you, increase favorability by 10, current favorability, 5. Xu Ling was secretly delighted. He had increased his favorability by 10 points in one go, and was not far from returning to a positive number. As long as the favorability is positive, it will be much easier for him to improve Han Xinyan's favorability. Xu Ling remained calm on the surface, turned his head to look at Xiao Ming, and said in a deep voice, "However, this matter cannot be let go like this." A trace of disdain flashed in Xiao Ming's eyes when he heard this. From what Xu Ling said, was he going to take revenge on him? Xiao Ming had experienced countless life and death situations abroad, and by chance he had received guidance from an expert. With his strength, killing a rich second generation in the secular world is as easy as killing an ant. No matter how Xu Ling retaliates against him, Xiao Ming is confident that he can escape unscathed. Beep, beep, this is the Chening City Public Security Bureau. How can I help you? Hello, there's a fight going on here, and the severity of the situation. Xu Ling walked out the door, glanced at the unconscious bodyguard, and then said, "It's so serious that 2 people were beaten unconscious." After confirming the address with the police, Xu Ling hung up the phone and waited silently for the police to arrive. Xiao Ming, who witnessed the whole process, was stunned, and his newly ignited ambition was extinguished in an instant. He was fully prepared to fight the enemy, but Xu Ling, the prince of Chening City, actually chose to call the police. Han Xinyun was also stunned. She knew Xu Ling's abilities very well. If Xu Ling wanted to take revenge on someone, a phone call would be enough to make him live a life worse than death. There were countless options waiting for Xu Ling to choose, but he chose to call the police. In fact, Xu Ling was also helpless, but this was the option given by the system, and he was sending people to deal with Xiao Ming now, purely to give Xiao Ming experience. If you think about it carefully, calling the police should be one of Xu Ling's best options at the moment. After all, no matter how strong Xiao Ming is, he can't be a direct enemy of the state organs. Although the prison cannot hold the protagonist Xiao Ming, who possesses special skills, it can at least put him in a passive position. The enemy is in the open and I am in the dark. As long as Xiao Ming is in the limelight, Xu Ling will have various ways to reduce Han Xinyan's favorability towards him. Once he succeeds in conquering Han Xinyun, Xu Ling's strength will surely improve by leaps and bounds, and then he will have a chance to completely kill Xiao Ming. The police quickly arrived and took Xiao Ming away. Xiao Ming did not resist. He was already in the wrong, and if he ran away he would be branded as a fugitive. Moreover, in Xiao Ming's opinion, he only knocked 2 people unconscious and did not cause much injury. At most, he would have to pay some money to Zhu Viller and then be detained for 10 days or so. Maybe it won't even take 10 days or 8 days. Xiao Ming recently gave Han Xinyun a secret cosmetics recipe to solve the company's crisis. Even if there are some misunderstandings in Tingyu Pavilion, she can't just leave Xiao Ming alone. As it turned out, Xiao Ming was still too naive. He was told on the same day that he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Han Xinyun did not come to grant him bail. 10 years. Impossible. I just knocked those 2 people out, and you said they became severely disabled. Xiao Ming stood up suddenly, his eyes filled with anger. If he did not want to be charged with assaulting a police officer, he would have definitely broken free from the shackles on his wrists and beaten up the police officer in front of him. The police officer looked disdainful and said indifferently, "Young man, you should know that the person you offended is the Prince of Chening City, Xu Ling. A 10-year sentence is considered good. If he really wants to punish you, you will be taken out and shot tomorrow." After hearing this, Xiao Ming's eyes were filled with murderous intent and his clenched fists made a clattering sound. "Prince? I don't care if you are a prince or an emperor. When I get out, I will make you kneel down and beg for mercy." With Xiao Ming's ability, he can escape from prison at any time. He is not leaving now, just wanting to wait for Han Xinyan's attitude. If Han Xinyan doesn't come to rescue me within 3 days, I will think that Xiao Ming has chosen the wrong person. 2 days passed, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the living room of the villa. Xu Ling was galloping hard, and with the help of Long Yarn Ju, Lin Yao's army was quickly defeated. Half an hour later, Xu Ling had no choice but to end the fight, not because he was exhausted, but because Lin Yao was too weak. Xu Ling got up and sat at the head of the bed. He lit a cigarette and took a deep puff. He secretly complained, "Why does this system give me a technique like Long Yarn Ju? The Long Yarn Ju is extremely domineering. Once Xu Ling activates it, he will feel full of strength. He will have no problem fighting for 300 rounds. It's a pity that Lin Yao cannot withstand his destruction." Ding! The host has shown his divine power for the 10th time, making the heroine Lin Yao completely satisfied, and his cultivation has broken through to the early stage of the yellow rank. When Xu Ling heard the system prompt, his eyes lit up. After 2 days of unremitting efforts, he finally took the first step and broke through to the early yellow level. Come on, tomorrow will be better. Now the protagonist Xiao Ming is only in the late yellow rank. Xu Ling estimates that he will be able to defeat him head-on with another week of hard work. System, what will happen if my cultivation level exceeds Xiao Ming? Or what will happen if I kill him? System prompt, when the luck value is lower than that of the protagonist, attempting to kill the protagonist will most likely trigger the protagonist's aura, allowing the protagonist to avoid death and become more difficult to kill. Note, their host needs to kill 8 protagonists in total. Each time a protagonist is killed, 100 of the luck value will be archived. The difficulty of killing the protagonists will continue to increase. Xu Ling curled the corner of his mouth. So Xiao Ming is just a novice task now? In the novel, the protagonist Xiao Ming becomes a land immortal who breaks through the heavenly rank in the later period, but such a character is only the first protagonist with the easiest difficulty. It's not that the system is cheating. After killing the protagonist, only Xu Ling's luck value will be archived, while his cultivation and skills are still there. If the difficulty of killing the protagonist does not increase, won't he be slaughtered by Xu Ling in various ways? Ding! Han Xinyun is disgusted with you, favorability reduced by 5, current favorability, 10. At this moment, Han Xinyun, who was somewhere unknown, suddenly lost his favorability towards Xu Ling. Chapter 8. Who says she is the number 1 heroine? The cell phone placed on the bedside table began to ring. The caller was noted by the original owner as Goddess Xinyun, so one didn't have to guess who it was. Xu Ling was not surprised, but instead showed an expected smile. No hurry, let this girl hang out for a while. He did not answer the phone immediately, but took the time to clear his throat and adjust his state. About half a minute later, Xu Ling picked up the phone and answered it, saying calmly, "Miss Han, what can I do for you?" Xu Ling. You've gone too far. Xiao Ming was just a little reckless, and you actually sentenced him to 10 years in prison. 10 years, 10 years. How many decades can one have in a lifetime? I thought you had changed, but now it seems that you have just become more annoying than before. Before Xu Ling finished speaking, an angry female voice came from the other side of the phone. From the sound of her voice, it could be heard that Han Xinyun was very angry, and even a little disappointed. Xu Ling pretended to be clueless and asked coldly, "Ms. Han, what do you mean?" Xiao Ming was sentenced to 10 years in prison, which was naturally Xu Ling's doing, but how could he admit it? Pretend. Keep pretending. If it wasn't you who arranged it, how could Xiao Ming be sentenced to 10 years? Hearing that Xu Ling actually wanted to ask her back a question, Han Xinyun was so angry that she stomped her feet. She wished she could fly over and punch Xu Ling left, right, and then uppercut to kill him. Because of what happened 2 days ago, Han Xinyun wanted to detain Xiao Ming for 2 days to reflect on his actions. However, when she came to the Public Security Bureau today to bail Xiao Ming out, she found out that Xiao Ming had been sentenced to a full 10 years. The police officer also specifically told Han Xinyun that if she wanted to release Xiao Ming, no amount of money would be useful and she must get Xu Ling's forgiveness. Having said that, who else could it be but Xu Ling? Xu Ling fell silent upon hearing this and did not try to defend himself. Seeing Xu Ling remain silent, Han Xinyun, who was on the other side of the phone, became more certain that she had not wronged Xu Ling. She suppressed her inner anger and said in a tone as gentle as possible, "Xu Ling, if there was a misunderstanding, you could have clarified it at the time. It's really too much to let others suffer 10 years in prison for nothing." If it weren't for Xu Ling's background, Han Xinyun would definitely give Xu Ling a lesson in ideology and morality, fearing that he would really put Xiao Ming in jail for 10 years. Xu Ling did not answer. He was silent for nearly 2 minutes before he said, "Han Xinyun, are you in the Public Security Bureau now?" "I'm at the Fonyang District Police Station, you." Without waiting for Han Xinyun to finish speaking, Xu Ling hung up the phone. There was no need for him to waste time talking to Han Xinyun. He could just go over and resolve their misunderstanding with practical actions. After hanging up the phone, Lin Yao beside him immediately asked, "Brother A Ling, what happened?" Xu Ling's phone was on speakerphone, and since she and Han Xinyun had a very close relationship, she could naturally tell that the person speaking on the other end of the phone was Han Xinyun. Judging from the general content of the conversation, there must have been some conflict between the two. One is a best friend, and the other is a lover. If there is a conflict between the two, Lin Yao, who is caught in the middle, doesn't he know what to do? It's okay, it's just a little trouble, I'll fix it quickly. Well, brother A Ling, if Sister Xinyun really makes you angry, can you? Lin Yao looked uneasy. She knew Xu Ling's background better than Han Xinyun. If Xu Ling really got angry, the entire Han family would be destroyed. Xu Ling, who was getting dressed, turned around and looked at Lin Yao, smiling. Xiao Yao, don't worry, I won't bother with her. There is no way. Han Xinyun is the #1 female protagonist. Not only does Xu Ling have to persecute her, he also has to put in all his effort to conquer her. Not long after, the Fengyang District Police Station welcomed a stretched Rolls-Royce with a license plate number 68. The appearance of such a luxury car naturally attracted a large number of passers-by to turn their heads, and many people took out their mobile phones to take pictures. I saw a Rolls-Royce slowly stop in front of the police station, and a handsome young man walked out of the car. He was well dressed, behaved calmly, and exuded the temperament of a superior from the inside out. Oh my god! This is so cool! He's handsome and rich. It would be great if he were my boyfriend. The women looked at the young man with admiration in their eyes, but unfortunately his aura was too strong and no one had the courage to step forward and ask for his contact information. At the door of the police station, Han Xinyun saw Xu Ling coming and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. After Xu Ling hung up on her, she made dozens of phone calls looking for help in order to reduce Xiao Ming's sentence. But no matter who they called, the only answer they got was that they were powerless. Some people even hung up the phone in a hurry, not wanting to have anything to do with Han Xinyun anymore. At that moment, Han Xinyun felt how powerful Xu Ling's background was. She hated this feeling and felt deeply helpless. Han Xinyun knew very well that if she wanted Xiao Ming to be released from prison early, she might have to use her past friendship to plead with Xu Ling. However, how could someone as proud as Han Xinyun give up her dignity and beg Xu Ling? Just when she was in a dilemma, Xu Ling actually rushed to the police station in person. Han Xinyun breathed a sigh of relief, but also couldn't help feeling a little proud. In Han Xinyun's opinion, the only reason Xu Ling came to the police station in person could be for her, there was no other possibility. Thinking of this, Han Xinyun regained her former confidence. She walked forward quickly and said, Xu Ling, you. Roll. Xu Ling had a cold expression on his face. He walked straight into the police station and ignored Han Xinyun. Han Xinyun was stunned on the spot, feeling a huge sense of disappointment in his heart. And then there's the embarrassment, the incomparable embarrassment. I am dying of laughter. The male idol brother ignores this woman. She is so narcissistic. Does she think that she can attract the attention of the male god brother just because she has a good-looking face? The women nearby were whispering and looking at Han Xinyun with sarcasm in their eyes. Asshole. Han Xinyun's pretty face flushed red and she was shaking with anger. She felt so ashamed, angry and frustrated that she was about to go crazy. This group of ignorant and infatuated girls have no idea that the male god they admire was their bootlicker some time ago. Han Xinyun didn't understand why a dog licker would change so much in a short period of time. Did his charm disappear? Or was Xu Ling always acting? Han Xinyun guessed half right. Xu Ling was not acting in the past, but is acting now. No, if it wasn't for me, why would he come to the police station? Han Xinyun's eyes flashed, and she suddenly remembered that Xiao Ming was still in the police station, so she quickly turned around and followed him into the police station. Inside the police station, in the detention room, Xu Ling looked at Xiao Ming indifferently, while the chief of the police station stood beside him like a little brother. In the detention room, Xiao Ming seemed not to notice the arrival of the two people. He sat cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed, his hands on his thighs, palms facing the sky. Others couldn't understand what he was doing, only Xu Ling knew that Xiao Ming was practicing. According to the plot of the novel, Xiao Ming should be able to break through to the yellow rank in a month. Xu Ling pondered secretly and opened Xiao Ming's attribute panel. Destiny Child, Xiao Ming. Luck value, 3000. Protagonist aura trigger rate 97.4%. Cultivation, late yellow rank. Skills, Grandmaster level medical skill Gigu magic needle proficient, bound skill Dao Piemiaju, 100 killer professional skills ultimate. Comprehensive score, 5467. The main character can be conquered by the official heroine. The #1 heroine Han Xinyun to be conquered. Lin Yao completely conquered. Ju Xiang not appeared. Iner Elvira not appeared. Holy crap. There are only 3 skills, but this overall score is too high, right? Xu Ling couldn't help but be stunned. Xiao Ming didn't even have any martial arts skills, but his overall score was 7 or 8 times higher than his. This is still in the early stage of the plot. If Xiao Ming grows up, he will definitely be even more terrifying. At this moment, Xiao Ming suddenly opened his eyes, turned his head to look at Xu Ling. A hint of coldness flashed in his eyes. It's you. Chapter 9, Dodging Han Xinyun against the wall. Xu Ling remained calm and ignored Xiao Ming. Are you kidding? After all, he is the villain who knows all the plots, so he is not scared by Xiao Ming's aura. The chief of the police station next to him frowned when he saw Xiao Ming's bad attitude and said unhappily, "Young man, be more serious. Do you know who is standing in front of you?" After teaching Xiao Ming a lesson, the director quickly changed his expression and looked at Xu Ling with a flattering smile. "Mr. Xu, this kid was wrong first, but he still dares to look down on others. I think he should be locked up for life." Xiao Ming's expression became increasingly gloomy. He was known as the world's #1 killer abroad and was honored as the Night Shadow Killer God. He did not expect that he would suffer such injustice upon returning to China. "You two bastards, wait till I get out. If I don't make you pay the price, I won't be called Xiao Ming." Xiao Ming does not have a strong background to rely on in the country, so he can only endure it and wait until he leaves the police station before making any plans. If Xiao Ming hurt Xu Ling in the police station, although he could escape from the country at all costs, he would not only become a wanted criminal in China, but would also be hunted down by the forces behind Xu Ling. Seeing Xiao Ming's gloomy expression, Xu Ling felt secretly happy and thought to himself, "Is this what it feels like to be a villain? So what if he is the son of destiny?" Xu Ling has a powerful background in China and is even more powerful in Chening City. No matter how strong Xiao Ming is, he dare not act rashly. After a while, Han Xinyun hurried over. Her face looked very bad, a bit like an old widow who had been alone in her empty room for decades. Han Xinyun looked at Xu Ling with a sullen face, and said with gritted teeth, "Xu Ling, what do you want to do?" Because of her outstanding appearance and family background, Han Xinyun has been the center of attention since she was a child. When she grew up, she became even more capable and had many suitors with excellent conditions around her. Even Xu Ling was one of his admirers. But in recent days, Han Xinyun has been repeatedly humiliated by Xu Ling, being ignored and neglected, which made her almost doubt her life. Seeing Han Xinyun arriving, Xu Ling did not say anything, but secretly gave a wink to the director beside him. The director immediately understood what he meant, and said flatteringly, "Is Mr. Xu still hesitating? In fact, you can rest assured. I will be in charge of the dispatch station, and Mr. Xu will take care of the judge. We can bring this kid to court tomorrow and sentence him to 10 years, life imprisonment, or even death penalty. It's all up to you." Xu Ling frowned slightly and asked in a cold voice, "Director Zhao, what do you mean?" Director Zhao was stunned when he heard this, and asked in confusion, "Mr. Xu, are you going to let this guy who dared to offend you go?" Xu Ling looked serious and righteously rebuked, "Chief Zhao, the police station should be a fair and honest place, and as the chief, no one knows this better than you. This brother was just a little reckless. At most, he will be detained for a period of time. How can we talk about 10 years in prison, life imprisonment, or even the death penalty?" Director Zhao looked flustered and said hurriedly, "I'm sorry, Mr. Xu, I acted on my own initiative. Let's release this brother today. As for the losses of Ziyu Villa, I will compensate for it." Xu Ling sighed, with a hint of sadness in his eyes, as if he was lamenting the injustice of the world. Director Zhao nodded in agreement, then stood aside with his head down, not daring to say a word. Domineering and magnanimous, Xu Ling feels that he is extremely handsome. With the two of them singing the same tune, not to mention Han Xinyun, even Xiao Ming, who was always good at judging people, felt that he was judging others by his own standards. Han Xinyun was stunned. It turned out that she had misunderstood Xu Ling. The person who arranged for Xiao Ming to be sentenced to 10 years was not Xu Ling, but the police station chief who acted on his own to please him. After Xu Ling finished speaking, he turned and left the detention room, passing by Han Xinyun. Han Xinyun reacted and subconsciously turned to look at Xu Ling with a complicated look in her eyes. After hesitating for a long time, Han Xinyun couldn't help but speak out to persuade him to stay. "Xu Ling, wait a moment." Xu Ling did not stop, as if he did not hear Han Xinyun's words. Seeing this, Han Xinyun hurriedly chased after Xu Ling, and for a moment she forgot that Xiao Ming was still in the detention room. Xiao Ming frowned and remained silent, not knowing what he was thinking. Han Xinyun chased him all the way to the police station, and no matter what she said, Xu Ling never stopped. It's not that Xu Ling didn't want to stop, but Han Xinyun's attitude was hesitant and he didn't get the result he wanted. Xu Ling worked hard to act and even spent a huge amount of money to bribe the police station chief for his cooperation. He wanted Han Xinyun to humble herself and apologize, and then he would forgive her generously. Only in this way could he effectively improve his favorability. However, Han Xinyun was a woman with a very strong self-esteem. Even at this point, she was still unwilling to apologize sincerely, and even seemed to blame Xu Ling between the lines. Xu Ling, can you please listen to me? Stop right there. Seeing that Xu Ling was not moved, Han Xinyun stood in front of Xu Ling with a look full of displeasure. Xu Ling looked indifferent on the surface, but deep down he had the urge to slap Han Xinyun in the face. It's fine that he worked so hard in acting but didn't get any favorability, but instead it was Han Xinyun who was angry. It seems that it is because the favorability is too low. If it was Lin Yao who misunderstood Xu Ling, she would have been so guilty that she burst into tears. Han Xinyun saw that Xu Ling seemed angry, so she softened her attitude and said weakly, "You blame me? Who told you to be that kind of person before? I just didn't expect that you would." Ding! Han Xinyun tells you about her grievances. Please make a choice at the critical moment. Choice 1, a loving and warm man, who has no choice but to forgive Han Xinyun and invites Han Xinyun to dinner. Image value increases by 100. Choice 2, be cool and arrogant, forgive Han Xinyun, and leave gracefully. Image value increases by 300. Choice 3, overbearing CEO, refuses to forgive Han Xinyun, uses his connections to cut off the channels of cooperation with Han Xinyun's company, and forces Han Xinyun to apologize. Image value increases by 200. This time the system gave 3 options, but in Xu Ling's view there were only 2. What a bullshit affectionate and warm man. Isn't this just asking him to be a bootlicker again? And inviting Han Xinyun to dinner may not necessarily succeed. From a one-sided perspective, the second option should be the safest, with a high probability of gaining Han Xinyun's favor, and the image value will also be increased a lot. However, Xu Ling chose the third one without hesitation. Ding! Successful selection, gain 200 image points. Xu Ling had a gloomy expression. Without saying a word, he suddenly began to press Han Xinyun step by step. What are you going to do? Han Xinyun retreated in a hurry, but soon found that there was a wall behind her and she had nowhere to retreat. Xu Ling's tall body completely blocked Han Xinyun. He supported the wall with one hand, leaned close to Han Xinyun's pretty face, and said in a deep voice, "Han Xinyun, are you too presumptuous in front of me? Are you pretending to be cool? Are you too proud? Are you still feeling wronged? Today, I, Xu Ling, will risk lowering my favorability in order to make you, Han Xinyun, put aside your dignity and apologize." Chapter 10, Damn it. A strong masculine scent wafted into her nose, and Han Xinyun, who was usually reserved and cold, suddenly lost her composure. Her pretty face blushed and she couldn't speak. She was so nervous that she felt like she was suffocating. Damn Xu Ling, how come he looks more and more handsome? Han Xinyun tried her best to suppress her female instincts, but she still felt the urge to do something crazy. For some reason, if it was the Xu Ling from before, Han Xinyun would definitely push him away with disgust, but facing the Xu Ling now, Han Xinyun no longer had the courage to push him away. What made Han Xinyun even more angry was that facing Xu Ling's domineering behavior, she actually felt a heartbeat. Ding! Han Xinyun's heart beats for you, favorability increased by 15, current favorability, 0. What the hell? Xu Ling was stunned. He hadn't done anything yet, so how come his favorability increased by 15 points? No, it's more important to get down to business. Xu Ling calmed down quickly. He had not yet completed the options provided by the system. If he forcibly violated the options, the damn system might punish him after the fact. Han Xinyun, don't take my indulgence towards you as tolerance. You are not qualified to be superior to me, and you are not qualified to make me grovel. Last time, I gave you face because of our past friendship. This time, I'm going to make you regret it. Xu Ling's tone was cold, his expression was like an eternal iceberg, and there was no emotion in his eyes. Xu Ling's words pulled Han Xinyun out of her romantic novel state. She frowned slightly and murmured in confusion, "Regret? Xu Ling, you..." Without waiting for Han Xinyun to ask further questions, Xu Ling turned around and left. The driver who had been waiting for a long time not far away opened the door of the Rolls-Royce for him. Xu Ling got into the car without giving Han Xinyun a chance to ask any questions. Han Xinyun watched the Rolls-Royce drive away with an uncertain expression. Asshole Xu Ling, I don't believe you would really do anything to me. Although Han Xinyun was a little worried about Xu Ling's words, she still had a glimmer of hope when she thought of Xu Ling's past performance. To take a step back, even if Xu Ling's personality changes and he is no longer his bootlicker and no longer cares about his feelings, he will still consider Lin Yao to some extent, right? Now Lin Yao is Xu Ling's girlfriend, and Han Xinyun has a very good relationship with Lin Yao. Lin Yao will never sit idly by and watch Xu Ling make trouble for her. Thinking of this, Han Xinyun's expression suddenly became a little complicated. In fact, at the birthday party a few days ago, Han Xinyun was not too surprised by Xu Ling's sudden confession to Lin Yao. She had known for a long time that Xu Ling and Lin Yao were childhood sweethearts, and she had also guessed that Lin Yao liked Xu Ling. In the past, Xu Ling only had Han Xinyun in his eyes, but once he fell in love with Lin Yao, becoming a couple was just a natural thing. In the past, Han Xinyun disliked Xu Ling and repeatedly rejected his advances, partly because she felt that Xu Ling had let Lin Yao down. Forget it, why should I think so much about that guy? Han Xinyun shook her head and stopped thinking about it. Her mind was full of Xu Ling just now, and she forgot that Xiao Ming was still locked in the detention room. Although Han Xinyun didn't have much good feelings towards Xiao Ming, a lazy guy, Xiao Ming had given her a unique cosmetic secret recipe, so he was at least a benefactor of the company. After confirming that the police had released Xiao Ming, Han Xinyun returned to the company with him. I thought the matter was over, but Han Xinyun had just returned to the company and hadn't even sat down when she received a call from a partner. The other party told Han Xinyun without any doubt that all cooperation with her company would be terminated. In the following half hour, Han Xinyun received more than a dozen calls in succession. Without exception, the content of all the calls was to inform her of the termination of the cooperation. Materials and channels have all been cut off. Even if Han Xinyun can produce a large number of new cosmetics now, she has no way to sell them. If this situation continues for a week, she will not only go bankrupt, but may also face the risk of high debt. Damn Xu Ling, is this what you call regret? Han Xinyun was both angry and anxious. It couldn't be a coincidence that more than a dozen partner companies terminated their cooperation at almost the same time. This scumbag Xu Ling didn't care about himself or Lin Yao, and attacked her company without hesitation. What should I do? What should I do? Han Xinyun racked her brains but couldn't think of a solution. The pressure was like a mountain pressing down on her, making it hard for her to breathe. The longer it drags on, the greater the risk Han Xinyun's company will face. Even if the crisis is resolved by then, the company's capital chain may be broken, and a broken capital chain is fatal to any company. At this moment, Han Xinyun suddenly discovered that the bootlicker who was regarded as a joke by everyone had such terrifying means that it was frightening, and she was as small as an ant in front of him. The cosmetics company that we had worked hard on for many years and were so proud of was now just a joke. Is it all I can do to apologize and beg for mercy from that bastard? Xu Ling's powerful background shrouded the entire Chening city like a dark curtain. Even if Han Xinyun tried her best, she could not shake it in the slightest. At this point, she had no choice but to bow her head and apologize to Xu Ling. Han Xinyun was struggling internally, feeling unwilling and resentful, but she could only choose to compromise. Compared to the bankruptcy of the company, the so-called dignity is not worth mentioning, not to mention that she has no dignity left in front of that man. Thinking of this, Han Xinyun seemed to have lost all her strength. She slumped down in her office chair and murmured, how could it come to this? Xu Ling's past actions made Han Xinyun almost forget how terrifying his background was, so she never gave Xu Ling a good face, let alone showed respect to Xu Ling. Now that Xu Ling no longer likes her, Han Xinyun is just an insignificant figure in front of him. I'd better make a phone call first. Han Xinyun sighed. Thinking of Xu Ling's ugly face and the fact that she had to apologize timidly, she felt unacceptable. After repeatedly confirming the wording, she took out her cell phone and called Xu Ling. Beep, beep, sorry, the number you dialed is out of service due to unpaid bills and cannot be reached at the moment. Service suspended due to non-payment. How is that possible? After confirming the number was correct, Han Xinyun called Xu Ling again, but still heard the same prompt tone. After calling several times, Han Xinyun came to the conclusion that she had been blocked by Xu Ling. Damn bastard! Han Xinyun was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he could do nothing about it. If she hadn't confronted him face to face, she could still save some face. Since the call was not going through, she could only go directly to Shu Ling. In the Yuanyang Sea View Villa district, on the hillside, a luxurious villa stands out from the crowd. The villa covers an area of nearly 3,000 square meters. There are dozens of supercars parked in the yard. Standing at the guardrail, you can have a perfect view of the sea not far away. This is Shu Ling's private villa and also his favorite villa. There is neither a nanny nor a housekeeper in the villa, and Shu Ling often lives here alone. The life of rich people is good. Inside the villa, Shu Ling was lying on a beach chair wearing a pair of boxer swimming trunks, closing his eyes and enjoying the comfort brought by the sea breeze. At this moment, a burst of urgent vehicle horns sounded outside the villa, disturbing his peace. Shu Ling took off his sunglasses, turned his head and looked in the direction of the villa's gate, and said in surprise, "Oh? You came here so soon." There was no doubt that it was Han Xinyun who came to visit. No one else would dare to honk their horn outside Shu Ling's villa like that except her. Chapter 11 Complete Fall. Han Xinyun, it seems that your self-esteem is not very strong. Shu Ling thought Han Xinyun would hold on for a while, but he didn't expect her to come over in less than an hour. At the gate of the villa, Han Xinyun sat in the car and honked the horn frantically, but no one came to open the door. Seeing this, she opened the car window, stuck her head out and shouted, "Shu Ling! Don't play dead, I know you are here." It wasn't that Han Xinyun honked the horn crazily on purpose, but no one responded when he rang the doorbell. If she delayed it for another day or two, her company would be ruined. After a while, a shirtless man came slowly on a balance bike. Han Xinyun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She stopped honking the car horn, got out of the car and said, "Shu Ling, open the door and let me in. I have something to discuss with you." If Shu Ling couldn't be found, Han Xinyun would have no choice but to ask Lin Yao for help. Asking Lin Yao for help would naturally make things much easier, but in this way Han Xinyun would lose even the last bit of her dignity. Shu Ling looked at Han Xinyun indifferently and said calmly, "Discuss? What to discuss? You ask even though you already know the answer." Han Xinyun's face was full of indignation. If Shu Ling had not blocked her, she would not have come to Shu Ling's house. "Han Xinyun, if you came here just to talk about this, I'm sorry, but I'm not in the mood to chat with you." Seeing this, Shu Ling sneered and turned to leave. Even at this point, Han Xinyun is still trying to be brave. He really won't cry until he sees the coffin. "Don't go. Shu Ling, listen to me." Han Xinyun suddenly became anxious and quickly ran over to grab Shu Ling through the gap in the iron railing door. Shu Ling was stunned. He looked down and found Han Xinyun grabbing his boxer shorts. Han Xinyun noticed Shu Ling's gaze and realized that she was almost pulling Shu Ling's pants down. Han Xinyun's pretty face flushed involuntarily. She quickly withdrew her hand and explained weakly, I didn't mean it." Shu Ling frowned and said with an unhappy look, "Han Xinyun, what do you want to say?" Any normal man would not care about having his pants pulled by a beautiful woman. Shu Ling didn't care either, but he would not miss any opportunity to take advantage of the situation. Upon hearing this, Han Xinyun quickly put aside his chaotic emotions and his expression became serious. "My company's resources have been cut off. Is it you who did this?" Although he knew that it was most likely Shu Ling's work, Han Xinyun still wanted to confirm it to avoid any further misunderstanding. "It's me, then what?" Shu Ling looked calm, as if he was talking about something insignificant. Han Xinyun was immediately furious. She really wanted to scold Shu Ling, but when she thought about the company's precarious situation, she could only put her emotions aside. Han Xinyun gritted her teeth and said a little aggrievedly, "Shu Ling, I can meet all your conditions within my acceptable range, please be merciful." Shu Ling looked at Han Xinyun with a playful look on his face and said disdainfully, "Han Xinyun, what qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? Besides, what can you do that can make me excited?" Han Xinyun was furious and anxious after hearing this. She couldn't hold back her emotions for a moment and shouted in frustration, "Shu Ling, you bastard! You are narrow-minded. Just because I misunderstood you once, you want to ban my company. I warn you not to go too far, or I will. Han Xinyun fell silent at this point, because she found that she seemed to have no way to take revenge on Shu Ling. The atmosphere became awkward for a moment. Han Xinyun tried to say something to save face, but suddenly realized that something seemed wrong. She seemed to be here to apologize to Shu Ling? Why was she still scolding Shu Ling? Shu Ling had a gloomy expression. He stared at Han Xinyun without saying a word, with a hint of suppressed anger in his eyes. Shu Ling. That's enough. Xu Ling shouted suddenly and frightened Han Xinyun so much that she shuddered all over. His expression was ugly, and he laughed in anger. I'm a bastard. I'm narrow-minded. Good, very good, very good. Xu Ling spoke in a cold tone and turned and left without hesitation. No, Xu Ling, don't leave. I. Han Xinyun was so anxious that she didn't know what to do. She wanted to keep Xu Ling, but she didn't know what to say. Seeing Xu Ling walking further and further away, Han Xinyun's heart grew colder. What was she doing? She came here to beg for forgiveness, but she dared to scold Xu Ling? Now that he has not been able to get Xu Ling's forgiveness, and has even made Xu Ling doubly angry, he doesn't know what kind of revenge he will face next. Thinking about the company going bankrupt because of his impulsive behavior, Han Xinyun couldn't help but look dejected and his heart was filled with deep despair. This time, she really had no way out. Don't go, Xu Ling, please. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Han Xinyun's voice had a hint of tears in it. As she spoke, she staggered and collapsed to the ground, no longer having the demeanor of a strong woman as before. Hearing this, Xu Ling suddenly stopped. Han Xinyun was pleasantly surprised when she saw this, and a bit of hope appeared in her eyes which were filled with despair. Xu Ling stood there motionless, and Han Xinyun thought he was struggling over whether to turn back. In fact, Xu Ling was trying hard to hold back his laughter, for fear of revealing a flaw. He put a lot of effort into it and finally made Han Xinyun reveal her feminine and delicate side. Ding! Han Xinyun is completely conquered, the difficulty of the strategy has been greatly reduced, the favorability is doubled, it is easier to increase the favorability, and it is easier to break through to 100 favorability. Hearing the system prompt, Xu Ling was even more delighted. He didn't expect that he could trigger a special plot. Since it is said that the difficulty of the strategy has been greatly reduced, he will probably be able to defeat Han Xinyun within a week. Thinking of this, Xu Ling turned around and walked back. He looked down at Han Xinyun and said expressionlessly, "Repeat what you just said." Han Xinyun was stunned at first when she heard this, but quickly realized what Xu Ling was referring to. She blushed, lowered her head and said in a whisper, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Han Xinyun has always been arrogant, so it was naturally embarrassing for her to say such things, but compared to the bankruptcy of a company that she had run for many years, an apology meant nothing. Xu Ling frowned slightly and said impatiently, "Your voice is so low, haven't you eaten?" "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Han Xinyun's eyes were red and his voice was a little louder. "Is this your attitude when you apologize? Can you look at me when you speak?" Han Xinyun turned around with difficulty and looked at Xu Ling, choking and saying loudly, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." At this moment, what dignity did Han Xinyun have? In front of Xu Ling, she was like a little girl who stole candy. She could only cry and apologize to the adults and beg for forgiveness. Xu Ling looked satisfied, nodded and said, "That's about right." Han Xinyun wiped her tears and asked cautiously, "Xu Ling, then, can you stop and let my company go?" "When did I ever say I would stop and let you go?" Seeing Han Xinyun's pitiful look was so adorable, Xu Ling couldn't help but tease her a little more. You. Han Xinyun was struck by lightning and stood there in a daze, unable to speak. Thinking of how she had no dignity just now on the scene of her company going bankrupt, Han Xinyun burst into tears and could no longer control her emotions. She is just a woman and can't bear so much. "Xu Ling, you scumbag, you will die a miserable death. I hate you. I hate you." Han Xinyun completely collapsed. She hated Xu Ling so much, but there was nothing she could do. She could only curse him through the iron bars. Overwhelmed with shame and anger, as well as the despair of having no way out, Han Xinyun cried so hard that she fainted. Damn, isn't it? Xu Ling was stunned. He didn't expect that a casual word he said would turn out like this. Chapter 12 Hate Xu Ling to the core. I don't know how much time had passed, but Han Xinyun seemed to have had a nightmare. She suddenly woke up from the bed with cold sweat on her forehead. Is this Xu Ling's villa? Han Xinyun really hoped that her previous experiences were all a dream, but the environment she was in told her that she was not dreaming. After coming to her senses, Han Xinyun did not show any hysteria, nor did she cry and go to confront Xu Ling. She sat on the bed in a daze for a long time. After experiencing despair, it seems that nothing matters anymore. If the cosmetics company goes bankrupt, Han Xinyun will be left with nothing and her family will not provide any help. She will be burdened with huge debts and will never have the chance to make a comeback. What should I do? spend the rest of my life paying off my debts. Or admit my mistakes to my father and find a good family to marry. Han Xinyun was stunned for a while, then suddenly sighed. She stood up and walked outside the house, going straight to the edge of the fence. It should be around 5 or 6 in the afternoon. Standing at this angle, you can appreciate the most beautiful sea view, the colorful sunset, and the sparkling sea. However, if you look forward, you will see the epic beauty, while if you look down, you will see the reefs that have been eroded by the sea for many years. Han Xinyun lowered his head and looked down. His sight was sometimes far and sometimes near. Sometimes he felt that the reef was right in front of him, and sometimes he felt that the reef was out of reach. In a trance, Han Xinyun thought of her mother Zhao Lin, a woman with a sad fate. For the sake of family interests, Zhao Lin was forced to marry Han Xinyun's father Han Yuanlong. Han Yuanlong didn't like Zhao Lin, so he never treated Zhao Lin well and only treated Zhao Lin as a tool. After they had a son and a daughter, Han Yuanlong took his son Han Xinyun away to raise him alone, leaving Zhao Lin and Han Xinyun, mother and daughter, to depend on each other. Zhao Lin has a weak personality and has never expressed her sadness about this. She only occasionally reveals her sadness in front of her daughter Han Xinyun. Han Xinyun is just the opposite. She has had a strong personality since she was a child. She often feels unfair for her mother and even vows to make her father apologize to her mother. Many years later, before Han Xinyun grew up, the mother who had given everything for her passed away. Because she had a weak will to live, she died in the hospital despite a disease that could have been cured. On the day of the funeral, his father didn't even look at his mother because he said he had something to do. His younger brother Han Xinyun didn't even have a tear in his eyes, as if the person who died was not his biological mother. At that moment, Han Xinyun deeply felt the sorrow of women and the sorrow of society. She hated her father Han Yuanlong and her grandparents who pushed her mother out for marriage. In order to make up for her mother's regret, Han Xinyun returned to Chening City. Without relying on anyone else's help, at the age of 24, she built a cosmetics company with a market value of nearly 1 billion in Chening City by her own efforts. Unfortunately, a person's ability is limited after all, let alone a woman's. The appearance of Xu Ling shattered all of Han Xinyun's confidence and ideals. In front of the giant Xu family, everything she did was just a joke. Now Han Xinyun will either end up like her mother, or be even more miserable than her mother. When she was young, Han Xinyun angrily questioned her mother, asking why she was so weak and why she didn't fight for her rights. But her mother just smiled bitterly and replied, "Xiao Yun, there is nothing to fight for. Some things have already happened and cannot be changed." Han Xinyun didn't believe it and thought she was different from her mother. Now thinking about it, she somewhat understood her mother's helplessness. "Mom, I'm sorry." Han Xinyun wiped her tears and suddenly missed her mother very much. She looked up at the sunset, the sea breeze caressing her face, and her hair fluttering in the wind. It's actually good to end it like this. Han Xinyun has gone through countless hardships and grievances along the way. This time, she was tired, too tired to struggle anymore. Han Xinyun closed his eyes and gently fell to the bottom of the cliff. Her feet stepped on empty air and her body lost balance, but she did not feel scared, and even felt a sense of relief. At this moment, Xu Ling suddenly rushed over and pulled Han Xinyun back by the waist. "Han Xinyun, what do you want to do?" During this conversation, Xu Ling was shocked. He didn't expect that Han Xinyun, who was always strong, would jump into the sea because of this blow. "Let me go." Han Xinyun was still struggling desperately, but Xu Ling had the cultivation level of the early yellow rank, so how could he let a weak woman break free? Xu Ling frowned, and seeing that Han Xinyun was reluctant to give up, he simply threw Han Xinyun out like a ball. Plop! Han Xinyun fell precisely into the villar's swimming pool. She was caught off guard and almost suffocated by the water. Xu Ling walked over, grabbed Han Xinyun by the scruff of the neck, and pulled him out of the water like a chick. "Han Xinyun, calm down. I don't want anyone to die near my home. You scum, you beast, you bastard. I will never let you go even if I die." Han Xinyun's defense was completely broken. She kicked her legs wildly in the air, trying to pry open Xu Ling's hands that were grabbing the back of her neck. But Xu Ling's right hand held Han Xinyun tightly like an iron clamp, and she couldn't move a single finger no matter how hard she tried. Seeing that she couldn't break free from Xu Ling's hand, Han Xinyun opened her mouth and bit Xu Ling's arm hard. Xu Ling gasped in pain, but because he was afraid that Han Xinyun would do something stupid again, he endured the pain and did not let go of Han Xinyun. "Han Xinyun, since you have chosen someone, you must be prepared to bear everything alone. You jump into the sea when you encounter a little setback. How can you prove yourself? Xu Ling had read the original novel and knew Han Xinyan's personality and character very well, so he quickly guessed what Han Xinyan was thinking. Han Xinyan was stunned. Xu Ling's words were not loud, but they were as deafening as a loud bell. Xu Ling was right. If Han Xinyan chose to commit suicide here, she would really lose everything and everything would disappear into thin air. But what is a little bit of frustration? Is it a little bit of frustration to be forced into bankruptcy by someone's words? Who are you? What qualifications do you have to lecture me here? Xu Ling, without your family's background, you are nothing. Han Xinyan looked angry. If Xu Ling hadn't been so aggressive, she wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. Xu Ling stared at Han Xinyan with a stern face and said in a deep voice, Han Xinyan, do you hate me? Han Xinyan was stunned. If she had to say who she hated, she definitely hated Xu Ling. If you hate me, then use your ability to take revenge on me instead of seeking death here. After Xu Ling finished speaking, he let go of Han Xinyan's hand, as if he no longer cared about her life or death. After a brief moment of stagnation, Han Xinyan quickly reacted. Her expression became gloomy and she said in a cold voice, are you trying to provoke me? Han Xinyan is not a fool. She understands that Xu Ling is deliberately provoking her to prevent her from jumping into the sea again. Don't worry, there's no need to provoke me. I will make you regret it sooner or later. Although Han Xinyan knew that Xu Ling did it on purpose, she just couldn't swallow it. Instead of cowardly jumping into the sea and ignoring everything, it is better to regroup and look for opportunities for revenge. Han Xinyan's eyes were no longer confused. As she spoke, she climbed out of the swimming pool, took out a leather rope from her pocket to tie up her wet hair, and resolutely turned around and walked towards the villa gate. Xu Ling secretly breathed a sigh of relief. His words were a bit harsh, but at least they prevented Han Xinyan from seeking death again. Xu Ling had no choice. He was the one who forced Han Xinyan to jump into the sea. If he suddenly changed his attitude and tried to persuade Han Xinyan would not only not appreciate it, but his favorability towards him might even drop significantly. What a bummer. If I had known, I wouldn't have chosen the overbearing CEO. Xu Ling really regretted his decision. He never expected that his impulsive behavior would lead to this situation. Now, let alone improving his favorability, Han Xinyan probably hates him to the core. Chapter 13 Favorability increased significantly. Wait a minute, if you hate me so much, why doesn't your favorability decrease? System, you have a bug. System prompt, when the heroine is in a completely fallen state, it is difficult to reduce her favorability unless she encounters special circumstances to remove the state. So strong? Why didn't you tell me earlier? You made me feel uneasy. Xu Ling secretly sighed that once the heroine triggered the fallen state, the success of the strategy was basically a foregone conclusion. Unfortunately, the system did not clearly tell Xu Ling how to trigger it, and he needed to figure it out himself during the process. Now Xu Ling is not so anxious about Han Xinyan. With the blessing of the fallen status buff, it is only a matter of time before he conquers Han Xinyan. It would be better to go back to find Lin Yao and practice the long yarn ju to improve your cultivation. Not long after, Han Xinyan was driving back to the company. Although she knew that the company was bound to go bankrupt, she was still unwilling to give up. Even if she had to give up, she had to give an explanation to the employees who had followed her for many years. Ding ding. At this time, the phone rang. Han Xinyan answered the call without looking at who was calling. Seeing that the company was irreversibly bankrupt, no matter who called her, it could not stir up any waves in her heart. Hello? Hello? Is this Mr. Han? You finally answered the phone. I called you more than 10 times this afternoon, but no one answered. Xiao Chen, what's the matter? Judging from their voice, Han Xinyan thought the caller should be her secretary Chen Tingting. Boss Han, good news. Our distributors have resumed cooperation with us. As soon as he finished speaking, Han Xinyan slammed on the brakes and almost flew out. She quickly parked the car on the side of the road, nervously picked up the phone and put it to her ear, asking with a hint of disbelief, Xiao Chen, are you serious? When? Mr. Han, of course it's true. It happened around 4:30 this afternoon. After receiving Chen Tingting's firm answer, Han Xinyan was completely stunned. She had already lost all hope and even thought about jumping into the sea to commit suicide. She never expected this would be the result. If Xu Ling hadn't stopped her, Han Shinyun would probably have been a corpse floating on the sea. No, 4:30 in the afternoon. If Han Shinyun remembered correctly, she had just arrived at Xu Ling's villa at 4:30 in the afternoon. Han Shinyun understood instantly that Xu Ling had lifted the pressure on the company as early as when she arrived at the villa. She cried her heart out and was forced to beg Xu Ling humbly. Was it possible that Xu Ling was teasing her on purpose? In any case, Han Shinyun knew that his company would not go bankrupt. Xu Ling, you bastard! Han Shinyun leaned weakly on the steering wheel, unable to stop crying, and tears as big as beans kept running down her face. Although she knew that Xu Ling was teasing her on purpose, she could not hate him anymore. Before, Han Shinyun thought Xu Ling was really going to kill her, so she hated Xu Ling to death. When she left, she even secretly vowed to make Xu Ling pay the price. But now, Han Shinyun has no idea how to express her feelings. I still remember that when Xu Ling stopped her from jumping into the sea, he looked indifferent and angry on the surface, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes that he could not hide. If she thought about it carefully, what Xu Ling said before she left was actually for her own good. On the contrary, I ignored Xu Ling's background and identity, never took him seriously, and acted unreasonably again and again. Xu Ling, are you going through all this trouble just to ask for my apology? Han Shinyun is not stupid. Even though she can't guess what Xu Ling is thinking, she can roughly guess why Xu Ling is targeting her. Putting aside recent events, Han Shinyun previously rejected Xu Ling's advances, which would have made anyone unhappy. At the birthday party a few days ago, Xu Ling once said, "Ms. Han, only when you hate someone will you regard his pursuit as harassment. I know you hate me, so I chose to give up." Xu Ling clearly expressed his attitude and had changed, but Han Shinyun was still the same. She misunderstood Xu Ling about Xiao Ming's imprisonment, but never thought of apologizing. Xu Ling made a big fuss and pretended to put Han Shinyun in a desperate situation just for an apology, and he didn't really want to bankrupt her company. Han Shinyun hated Xu Ling at that time, but Xu Ling had done nothing wrong from beginning to end. He just wanted to maintain his dignity as the young master of the Xu family and as a man. Maybe Xu Ling was not wrong, and it was I who was wrong. My impression of Xu Ling remained that of a good-for-nothing bootlicker. Boss Han? Boss Han? What's wrong with you? Can you hear me? Chen Tingting, who was on the other end of the phone, so that Han Shinyun didn't say anything for a long time and thought that something had happened. Han Shinyun wiped her tears, picked up her phone and replied, "Nothing, I'm just a little too happy." Boss Han, I understand how you feel. When we got the news, many people in our company cried with joy. They thought it was a miracle. Well, Xiao Chen, get ready. You may have to work overtime tonight. Got it. For the sake of the company, I, Chen Tingting, have no choice but to do this. Ding. Han Shinyun recognized you, his emotions fluctuated greatly, his favorability increased by 36, current favorability, 36 heartfelt confident. At this time, Xu Ling had just walked into Lin Yao's house. When he heard the system prompt sound, he staggered and almost fell to the ground. What's going on? Directly increased the favorability by 36 points. Xu Ling knew that Han Shinyun had a buff bonus, but even if the buff bonus was not doubled, it could still add a full 18 points of favorability. The most important thing is that when Han Shinyun left the Sea View Villa, her words showed that she hated Xu Ling to the core. Xu Ling was extremely relieved that his favorability was not deducted. How come his favorability suddenly increased so much all of a sudden? After a moment's thought, Xu Ling guessed that it must be Han Shinyun who learned that the crisis at the cosmetics company had been resolved, and then he imagined it himself. Women, self-attack is really terrible. Xu Ling suddenly understood a truth. If he wanted to win over the heroine, it was useless for him to try hard on his own. It all depended on what the heroine thought. Han Shinyun's favorability towards Xu Ling is now 36 points, only 24 points away from 60 points of favorability and falling in love with him. Xu Ling remembered that Han Shinyun would encounter a life and death crisis in the second half of a month. This would be a turning point in the plot. If he seized the opportunity, he would definitely be able to increase his favorability by a huge amount, and maybe even win over Han Shinyun both physically and mentally in one fell swoop. But before that, there is a small plot, and then the third female protagonist Zhu Saiying will appear in 3 days. In the novel, Zhu Saiying is a simple and innocent girl. She is the younger sister of Xiao Ming's deceased comrade in arms and the first heroine who develops feelings for Xiao Ming. Zhu Saiying is not the number one heroine, so the difficulty of conquering her is not as high as Han Shinyun. It does not take much effort for Xu Ling to conquer her, but Xiao Ming is Zhu Xian's brother and comrade in arms, so it is easier for him to conquer her. If Xiao Ming met Zhu Xian first, it might be more difficult for Xu Ling to conquer her than Han Xinyun. Fortunately, Xu Ling knew the plot in advance, so he could take the initiative and prevent Zhu Xian from meeting Xiao Ming. Chapter 14, Xiao Ming's Night Visit. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Xu Ling got up from Lin Yao's bed as usual. He had the Long Yang Ju with him, and was still in high spirits, but Lin Yao could not withstand the continuous battles, and her already frail body became weaker and weaker. I'd better exercise some restraint in the future. Xu Ling sighed silently. So far, he had only conquered one heroine, who could not keep up with the speed of his cultivation. If there were more heroines to help out, Xu Ling might have reached the middle stage of the yellow rank. Host, Xu Ling. Luck value, 406. Cultivation, early yellow stage. Attributes, physical strength, 25 agility, 10 charm, 21. Image value, 410 to be exchanged for 200. Skills, Hall level medical skill rejuvenation 9 fingers, Grandmaster level deterrence, Immortal level martial arts Gangquan, Dragon Yang Ju first level. Props, none. Comprehensive score, 856. Xu Ling took a look at his personal panel. After several days, apart from the improvement in his cultivation, he only had the 200 image points that he had been rewarded for choosing a key plot point to distribute. Xu Ling first exchanged the image points for 20 skill points, then used 4 of them to improve his charm, and used the remaining 16 points to upgrade his agility. Currently, Xu Ling's 3-dimensional attributes are very low. Let us not consider accumulating skill points to upgrade his skills for now, but improve his attributes first. After the upgrade was completed, Xu Ling opened his personal panel again. Host, Xu Ling. Luck value, 610. Cultivation, early yellow stage. Attributes, physical strength, 25 agility, 26 charm, 25. Image value, 410. Skills, Hall level medical skill, 9 fingers of rejuvenation, Grandmaster level intimidation, Immortal level martial arts, Gangquan, Dragon Yang Ju first level. Props, none. Comprehensive score, 895. Yes, in just a few days, the luck value has exceeded 600. As Xu Ling's luck value gradually increases, the probability of Xiao Ming triggering the protagonist's halo will become lower. By then, even if he cannot defeat Xiao Ming head-on, he can mobilize the family's strength to surround and kill Xiao Ming. In the early and middle stages of the plot, although Xiao Ming could dodge bullets, he could not withstand them. As long as Xu Ling was well prepared, he would have a chance to kill Xiao Ming. That's not right. I have the Dragon Yarn art with me, and my cultivation speed is more than 10 times faster than Xiao Ming's. Why should I use firearms to fight him? Xu Ling changed his mind and realized that once he succeeded in conquering Han Xinyun, his cultivation would surely increase by leaps and bounds. By then, Xiao Ming, who was only in the late yellow rank, would not be able to match him at all. Just as Xu Ling was thinking about how to deal with Xiao Ming, he suddenly felt someone sneaking into the villa. Speak of the devil, and he will appear. Now Xu Ling's sensitivity has increased to 26 points. His insight and reaction ability are far beyond ordinary people. He discovered someone entering the villa almost instantly. Lin Yao's villa is equipped with many security systems. Once an ordinary person tries to sneak into the villa, an alarm will be sounded. Those who can sneak into the villa without triggering the alarm are either agile and experienced, or people who are very familiar with the layout of Lin Yao's villa. Lin Yao usually lives alone in her villa, so the person who came could only be the former. Combined with what happened at the police station this morning, Xu Ling almost concluded that the person who came was Xiao Ming. Thinking of this, Xu Ling put on a pair of shorts and walked to the balcony. He roughly glanced around the villa and found that Xiao Ming was nowhere to be found. Come out, I know where you are hiding. After all, Xiao Ming is a legendary killer who has been trained to hide. With Xu Ling's current ability, he cannot find him. He must let him show up on his own initiative. The courtyard was silent for half a minute, and no one responded. Xu Ling was not in a hurry at all. He was very sure that someone was hiding in the yard. 2 full minutes passed before a figure walked out from the corner of the yard. Xu Ling looked carefully through the bright moonlight and found that the person was Xiao Ming as expected. Xiao Ming looked up at Xu Ling and asked in surprise, "Can you find me?" With his breath-holding and hiding skills, it is difficult for ordinary Shen-level masters to detect him, so how could he be discovered by an ordinary person? Unless, Xu Ling is not an ordinary person. Xu Ling was calm and collected, and asked, "It's you? What can I do for you?" Although his current cultivation level is not as good as Xiao Ming's, there is no trace of fear on his face. In Xu Ling's opinion, anyone who shows weakness to the protagonist at the beginning is not a villain, but a minion who gives experience. Seeing Xu Ling's calm expression, Xiao Ming concluded that Xu Ling was not an ordinary rich second generation. He slightly put away his contempt and said in a deep voice, "Director Zhao was someone you arranged, right? I just want to ask, what is your intention in playing that drama in the police station? So what if I arranged this for you? You won't suffer any loss. On the contrary, I am kind enough to let you go early." Xu Ling secretly complained in his heart. He knew that Director Zhao would definitely betray him, but he didn't expect that Xiao Ming would come to him in just half a day. Xiao Ming frowned slightly when he heard this and asked, "It seems that your target is Han Xinyun. So what? She is neither your lover nor your relative." Xu Ling looked calm and admitted it openly. "I don't care if you pick up girls, but the girl you pick up is Han Xinyun. I am her bodyguard now and I have the obligation to protect her safety." As a professional killer who has killed people like crazy, Xiao Ming naturally does not have much sense of justice. But since he has taken Han Xinyun's salary, he will not sit idly by and watch Han Xinyun fall into the wolf's mouth. "Brother, I think you're worrying too much. I can't even protect her, so how could I possibly hurt her?" Xu Ling laughed secretly. Han Xinyun was the #1 heroine, and he treated her like a treasure. How could he possibly hurt Han Xinyun? Even so, I still advise a scumbag like you to stay away from her. Xiao Ming had a gloomy expression. Previously at the birthday party, he had witnessed Xu Ling confess his love to Lin Yao, and his confession was successful. Xu Ling has already got Lin Yao, and now he is secretly plotting to hook up with Han Xinyun. He is a complete scumbag. How could Xiao Ming allow Xu Ling to continue his evil plots? What if I say no? Xu Ling sneered. According to the normal plot, Lin Yao and Han Xinyun are both part of Xiao Ming's harem. If he is a scumbag, what is Xiao Ming? Moreover, Lin Yao is Xu Ling's childhood sweetheart. In the novel, she has admired Xu Ling for a long time, but in the end, her love is snatched away by Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming's expression became increasingly gloomy. He immediately assumed a fighting stance and said in a cold voice, "That depends on whether you have the strength to say no." Xu Ling narrowed his eyes slightly. He did not answer directly, but secretly thought about how to force Xiao Ming to retreat. Although Xu Ling's strength will soon surpass Xiao Ming's, he is only at the early yellow rank now, and he has few tricks to use. Among them, the immortal level martial art Ganquan is the most powerful, but Xu Ling's cultivation is too low, and he may not be Xiao Ming's opponent in a head-on confrontation. The only solution for now is to try out the effectiveness of the Grandmaster level deterrent. Inside the villa, Xiao Ming saw that Xu Ling was silent for a long time and was about to test Xu Ling's strength, when he suddenly discovered that an incomparable and terrifying pressure erupted from Xu Ling. Early Xian stage. Middle Xian stage. No, it could be even higher. Xiao Ming was shocked. The young man in front of him, who was about the same age as him, was actually a Xian level master. Xiao Ming is only at the late yellow rank now, and does not have many trump cards. He will definitely be killed instantly if he faces a profound rank master. Retreat. You can only retreat. Xiao Ming has experienced countless life and death situations. He is not a hot-blooded young man. Faced with an invincible opponent, he decisively chose to escape. Xiao Ming moved and disappeared in the yard in an instant. Xu Ling couldn't help but smack his lips in amazement. This speed was comparable to that of a fighter jet. If Xiao Ming had not been scared and had attacked him on the spot, Xu Ling might have been dead by now. Chapter 15 Canary. Fortunately, my deterrent skill is strong enough, otherwise, even if I didn't die today, I would have been beaten into the hospital by Xiao Ming. After confirming that Xiao Ming had completely left, Xu Ling secretly breathed a sigh of relief. With Xiao Ming's methods, once he made a move, he would have to stay in the hospital for at least 10 days to half a month. In fact, Xiao Ming had a vague feeling that Xu Ling's aura was a little unreal, but he didn't dare to gamble, because if he gambled wrong, he would be dead. Moreover, Xiao Ming and Xu Ling did not have a deep hatred, so there was no need for him to risk his life for Han Xinyun, whom he had only known for a short time. Ding! The host and Xiao Ming have entered the hatred development period. Current stage: alert Xiao Ming's combat ability increases by 30%, cultivation speed increases by 15%, and 10% of the protagonist's aura triggering probability is deducted. Rewards for opening the alert stage for the first time: 1 chance to play the lucky wheel, passive skill God's perspective, real-time positioning and tracking of the protagonist around the world. Real-time positioning. So incredible. Xu Ling was stunned. He thought he had a god's perspective since he knew the plot in advance, but he didn't expect that he actually had the skill of a god's perspective. This is real-time positioning of the entire world. Even if Xiao Ming runs into space, Xu Ling can still find him. Although Xiao Ming also improved his combat capability and training speed accordingly, Xu Ling had the god's perspective, a supernatural plug-in that allowed him to avoid Xiao Ming when his strength was not enough. When his strength exceeded that of Xiao Ming, he could also find Xiao Ming anytime and anywhere. In other words, as long as Xu Ling's strength exceeds Xiao Ming's, Xiao Ming will definitely die, and the god's perspective is a passive skill of the villain and does not require any physical strength. Xu Ling turned on the god's perspective and took a look. Xiao Ming's figure suddenly appeared in front of him in 3D projection. His every move was in full view. The geographical name, location coordinates, and even the approximate time required to get there were all marked. I can't beat him head on right now, so let's see what the lucky wheel will give us. Xu Ling had no hobby of monitoring a grown man. Instead of watching what Xiao Ming was doing, he would rather use the reward he had just received to improve his strength. This is Xu Ling's first chance to play the lucky wheel, and he is looking forward to the prize he will win. System prompt: are you sure to open the lucky wheel? Confirmation successful, drawing a lottery for you. After Xu Ling turned on the lucky wheel, countless cards like playing cards spun rapidly in front of his eyes. He could only see the same patterns on the back of the cards and had no idea what the rewards were. The only way to judge the card rewards is the various colors of light emanating from the card, including blue, purple, and gold, and the least abundant is the flaming red. Ding! The lucky draw is complete, please check your prizes. After the rotation was completed, a purple card stopped in the center of the middle circle, and then turned into a real object and flew into Xu Ling's hands. Item card rare, invincible. Invincible: ignore combat ability, ignore the protagonist's aura, will definitely defeat the protagonist once, and has a certain chance to reduce the protagonist's luck value, but cannot kill the protagonist. Invincible. This thing is only useful in the early stages. Will I still need you later? Xu Ling shook his head in disappointment. To him, the best reward was to improve his strength, not disposable props. Although it is of little use, it is better than nothing. Xu Ling put it into the prop library in case of emergency. There will be a story about Han Xinyun in 2 days. Xiao Ming, you don't let me get close to Han Xinyun, but I want to get close to her. I want to see what you are capable of. With the deterrent skill in hand, Xu Ling is an expert with profound cultivation in Xiao Ming's eyes. As long as his true cultivation level is not revealed, Xiao Ming will definitely not dare to act rashly. At this moment, Xu Ling really wanted to laugh out loud like the villain on TV, but when the cold wind blew at night, he shivered in his bare chest. Let's go back and warm up in bed. Xu Ling returned to his room, closed the curtains, and went to bed to spend the long night with Lin Yao. 2 days later, at 7 o'clock in the evening, at the Han family manor. In the study, his father, whom he had not seen for a long time, stood in front of him. As always, he felt a mountain of pressure and coercion, which made Han Xinyun breathe rapidly and tense unconsciously. The father in front of him was the person Han Xinyun hated and feared. Since childhood, Han Xinyun has been thinking about getting away from the Han family and getting rid of his father's control. He dreams of one day having a successful career, standing at the same level as his father, and making him apologize for his past indifference. However, all the efforts seem too pale. After all, Han Yuanlong is Han Xinyun's biological father and the head of the Han family, and he holds the lifeline of the Han family. After graduating from university, Han Xinyun seemed to have founded Xinye Company on his own, but in fact, Han Yuanlong was behind it and everything was under his control. Han Xinyun is a member of the Han family after all. If she can't even get rid of the Han family's control, how can she stand higher than her father? The 3 words, Han Yuanlong, weighed on Han Xinyun's heart like a mountain. She could never break free from the shackles. Even the direction of her life was planned by her family. She was like a canary trapped in a cage. After a long stalemate, Han Xinyun couldn't stand the almost frozen atmosphere anymore and asked, "Dad, why did you ask me to come here today? I heard that your company is developing well and has obtained a piece of land." "It's doing well." Han Xinyun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If it was just a company matter, she would be able to handle it. However, Han Yuanlong's expression suddenly changed from calm to gloomy, and he said in a cold voice, "Why did Ling confess to Lin Yao at the birthday party a few days ago? Doesn't he like you?" Han Xinyun's heart trembled, and he quickly replied, "Dad, that is. Don't make excuses. I should have told you that Ling marrying you is not only good for you, but also can help the Han family move to a higher level. Now because of your impulsiveness, such a good opportunity is missed. It's ridiculous." Without waiting for Han Xinyun to answer, Han Yuanlong scolded her coldly. Han Xinyun didn't dare to refute. She had a layer of sweat on her forehead and her heartbeat quickened. The Han Yuanlong in front of him was tall, with a square face, sword-like eyebrows, and was dressed very elegantly. He didn't need to say anything, but just a slight frown on his brows could make people feel his pressure. Faced with this father who was intimidating without even getting angry, Han Xinyun, the president of Xinye Company, who used to act decisively and have a strong personality, could only stand by nervously like a little girl who had done something wrong. After a long silence, Han Yuanlong suddenly sighed and said helplessly, "Well, a giant like the Shu family may not be interested in the Han family. Ling may just want to have some fun." When Han Xinyun heard Han Yuanlong's words, a hint of relief flashed in his eyes, even a little bit of disbelief. She let go of her soon-to-be married son-in-law, and her father, who was always very strict, just gave her a few words of blame. "Since Ling is gone, let's take a look at Lixing from the Li family. With his ability, he is enough to help your company's market value exceed 2 billion. However, Han Yuanlong's next words made Han Xinyun feel like she was falling into an ice cellar. Chapter 16, New Son-in-Law. Han Yuanlong's tone was unquestionable, even commanding. Perhaps in his eyes, his own daughter is just a commodity, a tool to gain benefits. Han Xinyun's face turned pale, and he said unwillingly, "Dad, the company hasn't developed yet, and I don't want to talk about love. She doesn't like people she has never met, and she hates being a puppet whose fate is controlled by others." Han Yuanlong said in a deep voice with a straight face, "Whether you want it or not, the decision I made cannot be questioned. I allow you to have your own ideas, but you have a mission that you must complete." The father, who is related by blood, seems to have never had any emotion in his eyes. It seems natural for him to let his own daughter spread her legs in exchange for family benefits. When Han Xinyun heard the word mission, her heart went cold. Mission is her mission to sacrifice herself for the benefit of her family. Han Xinyun could no longer hold back her emotions and shouted, "I am a person of flesh and blood, your biological daughter. I have been trying to prove myself all these years, but in the end I don't even have the right to choose happiness." Seeing Han Xinyun's sad and angry look, Han Yuanlong remained indifferent. "I've said before that you're too emotional in your behavior. Your emotional behavior is destined to keep you from achieving great things. Do you think you can solve problems just by being angry and yelling?" He said with a hint of mockery in his eyes, and said disdainfully, "And your Xinye Company, I've always known about it. Compared to ordinary women, you're certainly outstanding, but you're from the Han family, you're my daughter. What's a company with a market value of less than 1 billion worth? Not to mention the rest of the family, even your brother Han Xinqian is many times better than you." Han Xinyun fell silent after hearing this. She wanted to refute, but she was powerless. Han Yuanlong was right. His efforts over the years were actually nothing in the eyes of the Han family. Do I have to spend the rest of my life with someone I don't like? And be controlled by him all my life? Thinking about what would happen in the future, Han Xinyun's anger gradually dissipated, replaced by sadness and even some fear. With such a father, Han Xinyun cannot change her fate, and no matter how hard she tries, it will be in vain. Han Xinyun's silence was undoubtedly a sign of submission in Han Yuanlong's eyes. He put on a tone as if he was worried about his daughter's marriage and said earnestly, "Okay, Lixing will be waiting for you outside. Go meet him first." Han Xinyun's breathing stagnated when she heard this. She raised her head and looked at Han Yuanlong in disbelief. It turned out that Lixing had been waiting for a long time, and maybe even the follow-up matters had been arranged, and Han Yuanlong called him over just to notify him. Thinking of his struggle just now, Han Xinyun suddenly felt a little ridiculous. Lixing was quite famous in the circle. Han Xinyun had met him a few times by chance. He looked decent, his speech and manners were gentle and refined, and he was devoted to his career. He was not the kind of playboy who was only interested in fun. In the eyes of some upper-class socialites, Li Xing can be regarded as a prince charming. But Han Xinyun is different. Because of her mother's affairs, she extremely hates business marriages without any emotional basis, and she will not like someone she has never even spoken to. Han Yuanlong seemed not to notice Han Xinyun's change of mood, and said with a half-smile, "Li Xing is a good person. He has met you several times and is very interested in you. He came here today to have a formal talk. I hope you can seize the opportunity and don't make the same mistake again." Hearing Han Yuanlong's words, Han Xinyun clenched her fists. Years of resentment burst out at this moment, and she could no longer bear it. Han Xinyun's eyes were filled with anger, and he shouted coldly, "Han Yuanlong! Is it true that you only care about profit? You never apologized for what happened back then, and now you're forcing me to marry someone I don't like, just like Grandpa and his friends forced Mom." When Han Xinyun's mother was mentioned, Han Yuanlong's expression became gloomy again, and his eyes were uncertain, like a volcano about to erupt. This time Han Xinyun was not afraid. She straightened her body and looked at her father with a look of stubbornness. In the living room of the manor, a man in a suit sat neatly on the sofa, looking a little uneasy. From time to time, he would look at his watch or drink a sip of water to hide his nervousness. "He is Li Xing." When he heard that he had a chance to marry Han Xinyun, he immediately packed up and rushed over. Although Li Xing had only met Han Xinyun a few times and couldn't really say that he liked her, Han Xinyun was a well-known beauty in the circle. How many men didn't want to get her? In the past, because Ling was pursuing Han Xinyun, other men had to be careful when talking to Han Xinyun. Li Xing never dreamed that he would have the chance to marry Han Xinyun. The maid next to him noticed Li Xing's nervousness, covered her mouth and chuckled, "Mr. Li, don't be nervous. Although Miss Han is usually cold, she is actually a very easygoing person. You two will definitely have something in common. Thank you for your good words." Li Xing smiled awkwardly. He didn't expect that after working in the business world for so many years, he would be so nervous about a woman. There was no way. Han Xinyun not only had a beautiful face, but her abilities in all aspects were no less than Li Xing. It was hard for him not to feel pressured. If I can get her, I wonder how many people will envy and hate me in the future. Although the task was arduous, Li Xing couldn't help but smile lasciviously at the thought of being able to hold such a stunning beauty in his arms. Xu Ling, the eldest son of the Xu family, probably never dreamed that the woman he had tried every possible means and even willingly acted like a bootlicker to get would actually be won by him, Li Xing. Just as Li Xing was daydreaming, a handsome man strode into the living room. The maid was stunned at first, then she stared at the man with an infatuated look on her face, thinking to herself, "Am I seeing things? How can there be such a handsome man in the world? The man in front of me has perfect facial features. The so-called handsomeness that it is hard to tell the gender is really just the right description for him. And that's just the way it is. He doesn't look effeminate at all. All the handsome young men and the handsome guys on the screen will be beaten by him." Xu Ling noticed the maid's hungry look, which seemed to show that she wanted to eat him up completely, and he couldn't help feeling a little scared. He only increased his charm by 4 points, it shouldn't be that exaggerated, right? In order to prevent any accidents, Xu Ling quickly ignored the maid and turned his attention to Li Xing, who was sitting on the sofa. As someone who has read the original novel, Xu Ling knew very well that Li Xing was the new son-in-law Han Yuanlong was looking for, and he also knew exactly what Li Xing was thinking at this moment. "Mr. Xu? Why are you here?" Li Xing was stunned. He was still laughing at Xu Ling in his heart the previous second, but Xu Ling appeared in front of him. Xu Ling's reputation as a bootlicker is well known in the circle. Many people laugh at him and even look down on him. But with Xu Ling standing next to him, most people could only despise him in their hearts, and no one dared to laugh at him in person. As long as Xu Ling wanted, Li Xing's business status would vanish overnight. Chapter 17, Ridiculous, Pathetic, and Pitiful Liquor. Xu Ling looked Li Xing up and down and said coldly, "What? Are you going to get the woman that I, Xu Ling, can't get?" "No, Master Xu, you misunderstood." Li Xing stood up hurriedly and looked at Xu Ling with horror on his face. "What did I misunderstand?" Xu Ling had a cold expression and exuded a chilling sense of oppression. I. Li Xing's face turned pale. Feeling Xu Ling's anger, his legs trembled unconsciously. "If I find out that you have any improper thoughts about Han Xinyun again, I will make you and your family pay the price. Now, get out of the Han family. Xu Ling's voice was not loud, but it made Li Xing's hands and feet cold and terrified. He almost ran out of the living room as if escaping, not daring to stay for a moment. Xu Ling sneered. In his eyes, Li Xing was just a clown and not worth mentioning. The purpose of coming here today is to deal with Han Xinyan's father Han Yuanlong. In the study, the father and daughter were still in a stalemate. Han Yuanlong has always had a firm control over Han Xinyan. Today, Han Xinyan suddenly rebelled, putting him in a difficult position. Han Yuanlong remained silent on the surface, but he was actually thinking about how to end the situation. He had many ways to force Han Xinyan to submit, but he was unwilling to completely break off relations with his daughter. Han Xinyan also felt a little regretful at this time. After all, the man standing in front of him was his father, and a cold-blooded and ruthless father at that. If Han Yuanlong is really pushed into a corner, who knows what decision he will make? As the atmosphere became increasingly tense, Han Xinyan became more and more nervous, not daring to imagine what would happen next. She longed for someone to come to the rescue and break the deadlock, but this was Han Yuanlong's private study, and no one dared to disturb it without permission, not to mention that today was a special case. Just as Han Xinyan was gradually falling into despair, it seemed as if someone heard her inner desire and knocked on the door of the study at the right time. Han Yuanlong frowned and looked towards the door, then asked in a deep voice, "Who is it?" Everyone in the manor knew that he had specifically called Han Xinyan back today to talk. Who would dare to disturb them at this time? Could it be that Li Xing couldn't wait any longer and came to ask? It's unlikely. Based on Han Yuanlong's understanding of Li Xing, he would not make such a rash move. "Uncle Han, it's me, Xu Ling." Han Yuanlong's expression suddenly changed. Why would Xu Ling come to the Han family? And at this time? Han Xinyan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although she didn't know why Xu Ling came to the Han family, she knew that she was finally out of trouble. Han Yuanlong quickly calmed down. He adjusted his mentality, walked quickly to open the door for Xu Ling, made a gesture of invitation, and said, "Nephew Xu, come in and talk." Xu Ling looked indifferent and nodded symbolically. He walked into the study and without waiting for Han Yuanlong to speak, he found a chair and sat down without any hesitation. Han Yuanlong's expression froze when he saw this, but he didn't say anything. As the head of the Han family, Han Yuanlong would not bow and scrape to Xu Ling like a slave, but in Xu Ling's eyes he was at most a bigger ant and he did not dare to offend Xu Ling easily. "Nephew Xu, I am grateful for your visit to my humble home today. I wonder why." Han Yuanlong was feeling a little uneasy. Looking at Xu Ling's expression, he knew that he had come to the Han family to call for an explanation. However, Han Yuanlong racked his brains but could not figure out how the Han family had offended Xu Ling. If Xu Ling got furious because of this, the Han family would be seriously injured even if it did not collapse. Seeing his father looking embarrassed, Han Xinyan, who was standing by, was not worried at all. Instead, he felt relieved. After knowing Xu Ling for so long, this was the first time that Han Xinyan felt that it was not wrong for him to bully others by taking advantage of his power. Xu Ling had a blank expression on his face. He didn't even look at Han Yuanlong. He said calmly, "Uncle Han, I heard that you are looking for a marriage for Han Xinyan." Han Yuanlong was stunned when he heard this. How did Xu Ling know about this? Could it be that Xu Ling has never thought about giving up Han Xinyan and has always been secretly paying attention to Han Xinyan? If this is the case, he is simply seeking death by taking the initiative to find another marriage for Han Xinyan. Han Yuanlong quickly came back to his senses. He swallowed and answered carefully, "My daughter is already 25 years old this year and doesn't even have a boyfriend. As an elder, I am indeed a little worried." As soon as Han Yuanlong finished speaking, Xu Ling suddenly shook his head and smiled, mocking himself, "The woman that I, Xu Ling, couldn't get was actually arranged for nobody. Thinking back to when I sincerely pursued Han Xinyan, this is the result. I am really a ridiculous, pathetic and pitiful lickspittle." After listening to Xu Ling's words, Han Xinyan's heart suddenly felt like it was pricked by a needle, a sharp pain for no apparent reason. In the past, she disliked Xu Ling, and never thought about how much price Xu Ling, as the prince of Chening City, had to pay and how much rumors he had to endure in order to lower himself to become a bootlicker. Now that Han Xinyan is about to be arranged to marry a stranger she has never met, she feels deeply regretful. At the beginning, Xu Ling was fully capable of forcing the Han family to arrange for Han Xinyan to marry him, but he did not do so. He always tried to impress Han Xinyun with his sincerity to prove that he really liked Han Xinyun. But what did Han Xinyun do? She was self-righteous, looked down on Xu Ling, and even felt smug about having Xu Ling's love. Thinking of this, Han Xinyun felt how ridiculous she was. Perhaps, she was the most disgusting person. Ding! Han Xinyun feels guilty and regretful. Favorability increased by 10, current favorability, 46 intimate. Xu Ling was secretly happy. With the buff of complete conquest, it was very easy for him to improve Han Xinyun's favorability. With just a few short sentences, Han Xinyun was able to develop a self-strategy and his favorability was directly increased by 10 points. Han Yuanlong was a little flustered and explained, "No, nephew Xu, you misunderstood, I thought. Do you think I don't like Han Xinyun anymore?" Before Han Yuanlong could finish speaking, Xu Ling interrupted him. Han Yuanlong's expression froze and he nodded. Xu Ling sighed, with a little sadness in his eyes, and said helplessly, "It's not that I don't like her anymore, but she doesn't like me." Han Yuanlong was secretly delighted when he heard this. It turned out that Xu Ling had always liked Han Xinyun, but he had to give up because Han Xinyun refused to accept it. If it was Han Xinyun's problem, Han Yuanlong would do everything he could to make her marry Xu Ling, even if it meant completely breaking down the relationship between father and daughter. Just when Han Yuanlong was about to say something, Xu Ling suddenly stood up and his expression returned to his usual indifference. "Uncle Han, I know what you are going to say. There is no need to waste your breath. Since Han Xinyun doesn't like me, I won't force her. As for the purpose of my coming today, it is to tell Uncle Han that no one can force a woman that even I, Xu Ling, cannot get to marry someone she doesn't like. Unless Uncle Han thinks that person can be better than me, Xu Ling." Chapter 18 Han Xinyun regrets. Han Yuanlong looked unhappy. If he couldn't get it, would he let others not get it either? He was really overbearing. You are right, Xu Ling is domineering, but he has the capital to be domineering. Even if Han Yuanlong is the head of the Han family, he has to bow his head. If Xu Ling said this publicly, which man in Chening City would dare to approach Han Xinyun? Looking at the indifferent man in front of her, Han Xinyun's heart suddenly trembled. Xu Ling's domineering behavior not only did not make Han Xinyun disgusted, but instead gave her a different feeling in her heart. In the past, Han Xinyun regarded Xu Ling's pursuit as harassment, mainly because she didn't like Xu Ling's personality, and Xu Ling would show his affection to her every day. But now, Xu Ling is no longer the flatterer he used to be. He didn't deliberately raise his attitude, but his words and actions showed his dominance and confidence, but he was not aggressive. Putting aside his family background, I believe most women would like a man who has a strong personality, is capable, is decisive in his work, and is so handsome. Han Xinyun has never been interested in romance, nor has she had any interest in Xu Ling. She even hates Xu Ling. But now, for some reason, she can't help but feel moved. What's going on? I actually have feelings for this bastard. Han Xinyun herself was very confused. Logically speaking, she usually kept her distance from men, so it was impossible for her to be attracted to a man so easily. You have to know that what happened last time at the police station door was just a normal physiological reaction of a woman to a man, but now Han Xinyun is really attracted to Xu Ling. Ding! Han Xinyun is attracted to you and loves you. Favorability increases by 12. Current favorability, 58 first love. Xu Ling smiled secretly in his heart. Han Xinyun's favorability was so high, it was impossible for him not to be tempted. If it weren't for the complete full buff, without the previous foreshadowing, and without the foundation of more than 40 favorability levels, Han Xinyun would not have been attracted to Xu Ling here. Today's goal has been achieved. After Xu Ling finished speaking, he left the Han family study. Although Han Yuanlong was unhappy, he had not lost his mind. Seeing this, he glanced at Han Xinyun and said, "Xinyun, why don't you go and send nephew Xu off? No matter what, Xu Ling is the eldest son of the Xu family after all. As long as he can become Xu Ling's father-in-law and marry into the Xu family, it doesn't matter if Han Yuanlong loses face." Han Xinyun hesitated for a while after hearing this, but finally decided to send Xu Ling off. It was not because of her father's order, but because she had something to ask Xu Ling. Outside the corridor, Xu Ling walked out and Han Xinyun followed. She quickly followed Xu Ling and asked, "Xu Ling, why did you come to the Han family today?" For some reason, the answer Han Xinyun most wanted to hear at this moment was to hear that Xu Ling came specifically for her. However, Xu Ling seemed not to have heard Han Xinyun's words. There was no trace of emotion in his eyes, and he walked forward regardless. Seeing this, Han Xinyun pouted and asked relentlessly, "You're doing this again? I'm asking you a question. What did you mean by what you said in the study just now? Do you still like me? If you like me, why do you always have such a sour face? Hello? Hello? Say something." Han Xinyun said a lot of things, but Xu Ling remained expressionless and ignored her. When the servants of the Han family who were passing by saw this scene, their eyes widened. At this moment, Han Xinyun looked like a girl next door who pestered her brother for candy. Where was the ice beauty she used to be? This is exactly what Xu Ling wanted. At this point, he is not far from successfully conquering Han Xinyun. In the novel, Han Xinyun usually looks like an arrogant ice beauty, but in fact she is a person who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She has a cold personality and even hates men, all because of her childhood experiences. Not only that, Han Xinyun is an old single who has never been in a relationship. Once she gets involved in love, she acts like a naive person. Xu Ling. Stop right there. Seeing that Xu Ling was unmoved, Han Xinyun could only open her hands to block his way. Xu Ling stopped walking, frowned at Han Xinyun, and said impatiently, "Han Xinyun, are you annoying? I came to the Han family simply because I didn't want Xiaoyao's best friend to marry someone she didn't like. Don't be so self-indulgent." Han Xinyun was stunned, with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. She almost forgot that Xu Ling already had a girlfriend, Lin Yao. How could he still not give up on her? Han Xinyun was stunned for a while, and suddenly felt something was wrong. She asked suspiciously, "No, if that's the case, then why did you say those words in the study just now? Also, I just found out that I was going to be forced into marriage, how come you came so timely?" This. Xu Ling's expression froze and he looked speechless. "I knew it. If you like me, why did you always make things difficult for me before? Did you really want to get my attention?" Han Xinyun snorted softly, and couldn't help feeling a little proud and inexplicably fortunate. What does it matter how high your social status is? What does it matter how handsome you are? You still like me, don't you? Ding! Han Xinyun knows your feelings. Favorability increased by 8, current favorability, 66 secretly in love. Hearing the system upgrade tone, Xu Ling remained calm on the surface. He frowned and looked at Han Xinyun. He was silent for a long time before he said, "Han Xinyun, you really misunderstood me this time. I never intended to attract your attention." Xu Ling sighed and said with a complicated expression, "Even if I still like you, I already have Xiaoyao, and I won't have any thoughts about you anymore." Han Xinyun was stunned after hearing this and didn't know how to answer for a moment. Seeing this, Xu Ling shook his head, said nothing more, walked around Han Xinyun and left the Han family. When Han Xinyun came to her senses, Xu Ling was gone. She turned around and wanted to chase Xu Ling, but stopped after taking just 2 steps. If I go after Xu Ling now, what else can I say if I catch him? I'm sorry, maybe I let you down. Han Xinyun looked sad. She stood there alone, looking a little lonely. Looking back, Han Xinyun had been pursuing a man with excellent conditions and who loved her deeply, but she only treated him as a licking dog who harassed her. Now that the man has found a new home, it is too late for Han Xinyun to regret. As Xu Ling said, even if 2 people like each other, what's the use? Lin Yao and Xu Ling have been childhood sweethearts and have a deep relationship. It is impossible for Xu Ling to give up Lin Yao for Han Xinyun. Besides, Han Xinyun and Lin Yao are close friends, and she doesn't want to cause Lin Yao to lose her love because of her own reasons. Ding! Han Xinyun feels mixed emotions because of you, full of regrets. Favorability increased by 10, current favorability, 76. I am in love with you. Chapter 19. The Villain's Helplessness. As soon as Xu Ling walked out of the Han family, he heard the system prompt sound. Now Han Xinyun's high sensitivity towards him is as high as 76 points. Under normal circumstances, Xu Ling will definitely succeed if he finds an opportunity to confess his feelings. However, with Lin Yao's presence, even if Han Xinyun's favorability exceeds 80, Xu Ling may not be able to succeed in conquering her. The favorability is good enough, but how do we break through this layer of window paper later? Now the only problem left before Xu Ling is to make Lin Yao and Han Xinyun accept each other's existence. Although Lin Yao has a good personality and is deeply in love with Xu Ling, it does not mean that she can accept Xu Ling's cheating on her, and that he is cheating on her with her best friend Han Xinyun. Not to mention Han Xinyun. With her personality, how could she accept sharing a husband with her best friend? I say, system, is this a loophole? You want me to capture multiple heroines, but in modern society, who can accept that their partner has other women? Xu Ling had a headache. In ancient times, this was called starting a harem, but in modern times, this was called despicable cheating by a scumbag. System prompt: the so-called inability to accept is just because of not loving enough. Deep love is enough. Details of favorability: secretly in love. Falling in love with you, the heroine is attracted to you. Normally, she can complete the initial strategy and become a boyfriend and girlfriend, but the relationship is limited to holding hands and kissing. The heroine loves you deeply, and she has chosen you as her only one in this life. She is willing to do anything for you, but because of this, she cannot accept any cheating. You will be the heroine's only one, her whole world. No matter what happens, she will stay by your side and never leave you. Hint: after the capture is successful, if the heroine's favorability is below 80 and she finds out that you have cheated, her favorability will be reset to 0 and it will be difficult to restore it. If she finds out that you have cheated when her favorability is above 80, a special plot will be triggered and the heroine will gain the power of love and resentment and will do her best to hunt you down until you are dead. What the hell? This means that the favorability must reach 100 before the heroine and the heroine know each other's existence and can complete the strategy. Xu Ling exclaimed in shock. Fortunately, he did not act impulsively. If he had confessed to Han Xinyun directly after seeing that her favorability rating reached 60, wouldn't he have been screwed? In fact, in the process of conquering the heroine, Xu Ling could have concealed the fact that he had other women, and waited until his favorability reached 100 before telling the heroine, which would have made the conquest much faster. It's just that Han Xinyun is Lin Yao's best friend, so she knows about Lin Yao's existence from the beginning. Xu Ling must patiently overcome 100 points of favorability before he can complete the initial strategy. The number one heroine is indeed worthy of her reputation. The difficulty of conquering her is much higher than that of other heroines. Xu Ling sighed secretly. It was too difficult to break through the favorability level of 100. He and Lin Yao had been together for so many days, but the favorability level was still stuck at 99 points. System: what is the power of love and resentment? Can the heroine become stronger than the protagonist? Xu Ling noticed the key words in the system prompts. Some heroines found out that he was a scumbag and might indeed resent him or even hunt him down, but some heroines were just ordinary people. Could they really kill him? Power of love and resentment. After the heroine obtains the power of love and resentment, her favorability towards you becomes 100, and she obtains a cultivation level 1 realm higher than yours, and immediately obtains an emperor level special ability. Hint: the heroine at this time is more dangerous than the protagonist, and she hates you extremely. If you are not strong enough, please be careful to avoid the heroine who has obtained the power of love and resentment. Xu Ling took a deep breath after reading it. This damn system was really a scam. If he played both sides now, Lin Yao would instantly become a Shen level master and also gain a special ability. Xu Ling's cultivation level is only at the initial stage of the yellow rank. If he is hunted down by a black rank expert who hates him extremely, he will probably have to flee for the rest of his life, let alone conquer the heroine and improve his strength. Whatever. Anyway, I never thought of taking down Han Xinyun so quickly. Xu Ling shook his head without thinking too much. Now Han Xinyun and Lin Yao both have high favorability, and he will be able to win them over sooner or later. It would be better for him to think about how to conquer the third female protagonist who will appear tomorrow. Unlike Han Xinyun, the third female protagonist Zhu Xiang is not the number one female protagonist, and she doesn't know that Xu Ling has other women, so it is normal to be difficult to conquer her. Moreover, Xu Ling had read the original novel and was very familiar with the character and life of each heroine, so he could easily grasp the soft spot in the heroine's heart. When Xu Ling returned to the Sea View Villa, Lin Yao had been waiting at home for a long time. Since confirming their relationship, the two have become increasingly close, and recently decided to live together in this villa. Xu Ling walked into the living room and was about to give Lin Yao a bear hug, but was gently pushed away by Lin Yao's bare hands. Lin Yao looked worried and a little puzzled, and asked, "Brother Ling, what have you been doing again?" It's not that Lin Yao is suspicious by nature, but Xu Ling's whereabouts recently have been too strange, and he was unwilling to tell her what he was doing. Lin Yao didn't suspect Xu Ling of looking for women outside, because the two of them were in the period of passionate love. Xu Ling treated her like a treasure and cherished her very much, so how could he look for other women? Lin Yao just felt that Xu Ling was hiding something from her, and she felt very uneasy. Xu Ling was silent for a while after hearing this. After thinking it over, he decided to tell Lin Yao the truth. It was not something shameful anyway. And it is much better to tell Lin Yao in advance than for Lin Yao to find out on her own. Yao Yao, I'll tell you the truth, I went to the Han family today. After Xu Ling finished speaking, he stared into Lin Yao's eyes, observing how she would react. As Xu Ling expected, when Lin Yao heard that he went to the Han family, her face turned slightly pale and her eyes became a little uneasy. Seeing this, Xu Ling felt guilty. It was a sin for him to have such a beautiful woman but still think about conquering other heroines all day long. But if he doesn't try to conquer the heroine, once Xu Ling's luck value drops below 0, he will most likely be dead. This is the fate of the villain, either Xu Ling dies or the protagonist dies. Lin Yao quietly tightened her sleeves, pursed her lips, and asked cautiously, Brother A Ling, why are you going to the Han family? Xu Ling took a deep breath and answered seriously, Yao Yao, Han Xinyun was forced to get married by her father. I went to help her solve the problem, that's all. He paused and continued, Han Xinyun is your best friend after all. If she marries someone she doesn't like, you will be sad, right? Lin Yao fell silent after hearing this. It was indeed the fact. If she had known before Xu Ling that Han Xinyun was forced to marry, she would definitely have asked Xu Ling to help Han Xinyun solve the problem. But Lin Yao asking Xu Ling to help Han Xinyun and Xu Ling helping Han Xinyun himself are two completely different things. If Xu Ling had no other intentions, why did he hide it from Lin Yao before going to the Han family? Chapter 20. The third female lead. Xu Ling had a complicated expression. The girl in front of him loved him deeply, gave him her body and soul, and regarded him as everything. But now, she seemed cautious even when asking questions or doubting something. Xu Ling was unable to give this pitiful girl a sense of security. Yao Yao, do you believe me? Xu Ling sighed inwardly. Now that things had come to this, he had no choice but to go down this path. Lin Yao didn't say anything, but just nodded obediently. Then don't think too much, come, hug one. Upon hearing this, Xu Ling showed a sincere smile on his face and opened his arms towards Lin Yao. Xu Ling would not waste time explaining, nor would he say a lot of love words, because he felt that with Lin Yao's personality, she would not think too much about it. Some people would say that Xu Ling is a complete scumbag who bullies Lin Yao for her weak character and plays with her feelings, but who calls him a villain? Besides, Xu Ling is not a hypocritical person. Unless something unexpected happens, he will never abandon Lin Yao. As expected, Lin Yao didn't say anything else and leaned lightly on Xu Ling's chest. The soft jade in his arms, the fragrance filled his nose. Xu Ling's mind was aroused again, and his hands began to touch her dishonestly. This time, Lin Yao did not let Xu Ling do whatever he wanted, but grabbed Xu Ling's hand. She looked up at Xu Ling and asked softly, Brother A Ling, at Sister Xinyun's birthday party, you confessed to me because you liked me, right? Of course, Yao Yao, don't you understand my feelings? Xu Ling was so horny at the moment that he didn't pay any attention to what Lin Yao was saying and just answered casually. Lin Yao was silent for a while after hearing this, but she finally chose to compromise, let go of her hand and let Xu Ling do whatever he wanted. Upon seeing this, Xu Ling picked up Lin Yao by the waist and walked towards the bedroom while kissing her. After a while, the room was filled with spring again, and the long night was spent in the love between men and women. The next day, Xu Ling did not go to find Han Xinyun, nor did he go to accompany Lin Yao. Instead, he drove to a hospital alone. Chening City First People's Hospital. According to the plot, the third female protagonist Zhu Xiyin will appear here today. In the novel, Zhu Xiyin's father died early, and her brother Zhu Jianfen lost contact after joining the army 5 years ago, leaving her to depend on her sick mother. Zhu Xiyin's brother Zhu Jianfen was the protagonist Xiao Ming's comrade in arms. He was killed while on a mission a year ago. The other party attacked him because of Xiao Ming. Since they couldn't kill the skilled Xiao Ming, they killed Xiao Ming's comrades in arms in revenge. Xiao Ming felt deep regret when he learned that Zhu Jianfen died because of him, so he retired and returned to China. He came to Chening City specifically to find and take care of Zhu Xiyin. According to the original plot, today in order to solve the trouble for Han Xinyun, Xiao Ming came to their hospital to find Zhang Quan, the boss of a rival company who was suffering from a disease, and used threats and inducements to force Zhang Quan to compromise. When he was about to leave, he met Zhu Xiyin by chance, and paid the medical expenses for Zhu Xiyin's mother. On the way, he used his medical skills to save an old man and made friends with the second largest family in Chening City, the Bai family. Because of her brother and comrade in arms, Zhu Xiyin had a good impression of Xiao Ming from the beginning. Later, Xiao Ming helped her solve some problems, and her favorability towards him increased rapidly. Therefore, Xu Ling must first stop Zhu Xiyin from meeting Xiao Ming, otherwise he will most likely not be able to snatch Xiao Ming away. At 10:30 in the morning, a supercar worth hundreds of millions of dollars parked in the hospital parking lot, attracting many onlookers nearby. Xu Ling is quite famous in Chening City. He used to race cars with his friends. Someone recognized that this extremely cool black Cybele supercar is Xu Ling's exclusive car. The Zibel supercar is limited to 39 units worldwide, and Xu Ling may be the only one in China who owns it. Some people even come here to wait for him at places Xu Ling often passes by, just to witness the sports car worth 100 million yuan. Xu Ling opened the car door, bent over and got out of the car. His handsome appearance made the women look at him sideways, while the men felt the suffocating pressure and lowered their heads silently in shame. In response to the women's admiring looks, Xu Ling could only say sorry. His target today was not a passerby girl. If Xu Ling's guess was correct, Xiao Ming would arrive at the hospital in half an hour. After he dealt with Zhang Quan, he first met Zhu Xiyin by chance, and then ran into Bai Huan, the old patriarch of the Bai family. At this time, Zhu Xiyin should be in the hospital taking care of her mother Lin Shang. If Xu Ling wants to prevent her from meeting Xiao Ming, he just needs to keep her in the ward. In Ward 306, a girl in her early 20s was sitting beside the bed, peeling an apple with a knife in her hand. A haggard woman was lying on the hospital bed. She looked at the girl with a complicated expression, as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. The girl seemed not to notice the woman's mood. She handed the peeled apple to the woman and said with a smile, "Mom, come, eat this apple first." The woman did not take the apple, but sighed deeply and said in a hoarse voice, sighing, "Otherwise, Mom's disease is incurable." After constant inner struggle, Lin Shang finally made a choice. Compared with her daughter's future, her miserable life with 1 foot half in the coffin was nothing. Zhu Xiyin's expression froze. She took the apple and forced it on Lin Shang, forcing a smile and saying, "Mom, what are you talking about? The disease must be treated. You don't have to worry about the medical expenses. At worst, I can drop out of school and go to work." Xiyin, don't be confused. You know Mom's illness well. Even if you go to work, you may not be able to earn enough for medical expenses. Lin Shang's expression became serious. She was not as emotional as Zhu Xiyin. She made this decision after careful consideration. Since the disease cannot be cured no matter what, Lin Shang might as well give up early so that Zhu Xiyin will not be under so much pressure and will not have to worry about her mother in the ward when she is in class. I. Zhu Xiyin's smile gradually disappeared, her eyes became red, and she choked up and couldn't utter a complete sentence. Zhu Xiyin really wants to save her mother and she would give everything for it, but with her abilities, no matter what she does, she cannot save her mother. Her mother's words were cruel and cold, but they were the best choice. Zhu Xiyin knew this very well in her heart, but she could not give up on saving her mother, and could not bear to watch her only remaining relative leave. At this time, the door of the ward was opened, and a nurse and a doctor walked into the ward. The nurse walked straight to Lin Shang's bedside. She took a notebook and wrote and drew something, shouting, "Lin Shang, bed number 2 in Ward 306, it's time to pay the medical fees. Hospitalization fees, oxygen fees, observation fees, a total of 5,600 yuan. To complete the follow-up treatment, not counting the surgery fee, at least 30,000 yuan will be required." The other man in a white coat and wearing square-framed glasses was Lin Shang's attending physician. He did not yell when the nurse came in, but stood quietly by the side with his hands in his pockets, as if waiting for something. "Do I have to pay 5,600 now?" Zhu Xiyin's face was pale. Her family was not well off to begin with, and the long-term treatment had consumed all of their remaining savings. It was impossible for her to come up with 5,000 yuan in such a short period of time. The nurse rolled her eyes and said unhappily, "What else? You keep putting it off with all sorts of excuses. If you put it off again today, you can take your mother home and lie down." "Miss Nurse, can you give me a few more days? I can't come up with more than 5,000 yuan right now. I'll get some money together with my friends in a few days." Zhu Xiyin looked embarrassed, wondering how much money she needed to borrow from the rest of the family to make up the total of 5,600 yuan. The nurse glanced at the apple in Zhu Xian's hand and sneered, "You don't have money to pay for medical expenses, but you still have money to buy apples. Let me tell you, this is a regular hospital, don't even think about buying on credit. Miss Nurse, please give me 3 days, I will definitely collect the money and pay." Zhu Xian's eyes were filled with tears and her voice was filled with sobbing. Her expression was full of pleading, and she almost knelt down to the nurse. She really had no money to pay the medical bills. She struggled for a long time today, thinking that her mother hadn't eaten fruit for a long time, so she spent 8 yuan and 60 cents to buy 2 kilograms of the cheapest apples. She didn't expect that the nurse would find fault with this. "It's no use begging me, Li Yuqian, can you please speak properly?" Before the nurse could finish speaking, the doctor who had been silent suddenly interrupted. Chapter 21, True Colors Revealed. Dr. Qian. Li Yuqian's expression froze slightly. Although she was dissatisfied, she did not dare to refute. The doctor in front of her was named Qianxing. It was said that he had strong connections in the hospital, which was why he was able to become an attending physician at such a young age. If Li Yuqian dared to disrespect him, she might lose her job in the hospital. Qianxing looked indifferent, looked at Li Yuqian and said, "Everyone has dilemmas. As a nurse, you are so aggressive. What kind of angel in white are you?" Li Yuqian's face turned pale when she heard this, and she lowered her head and stopped talking. Zhu Xian breathed a sigh of relief when she saw this, and was secretly grateful to Qianxing for coming to her rescue. She wiped her tears, bowed slightly and said apologetically, "Thank you, Dr. Qian, I will get the money together as soon as possible." Seeing Zhu Xian's weak and helpless appearance, Qianxing revealed a strange smile under his mask, which was completely different from the righteous smile just now. He remained calm on the surface, adjusted his glasses, and said, "Classmate, don't worry, let's go out and talk about your mother's matter." Qianxing said this and turned and left the ward, leaving Zhu Xian a little at a loss. Zhu Xian didn't understand why Qianxing had to leave the ward on purpose. Could it be that her mother couldn't hear the conversation? "Mom, I'm going to talk to Dr. Qian. I'll be back soon." Whether out of gratitude for Qianxing's help or for her mother's sake, Zhu Xian had to follow him to ask about it. She said hello to her mother and left the ward. As for the nurse Li Yuqian next to her, she stood there with an awkward look on her face, not knowing whether to leave or stay. Outside the ward, Qianxing stood confidently in the corridor waiting, for he knew Zhu Xian would follow. In less than a minute, Zhu Xian opened the door of the ward and walked out. She walked up to Qianxing and asked, "Dr. Qian, who are you looking for?" Qianxing didn't say anything, but looked at Zhu Xian with a very obscene look, and it was unknown what he was thinking about in his mind. "Dr. Qian." Zhu Xian subconsciously took 2 steps back, somewhat unable to believe that this was the Dr. Qian who had just spoken righteously in the ward. Qianxing restrained himself a little upon seeing this. It was not because he was too impatient, but because Zhu Xian was too beautiful. Zhu Xian was at the prime of her life, and her youthfulness and reserve that only a schoolgirl could have was simply fascinating. Although she was only wearing a simple white t-shirt and blue jeans, her stunning appearance set off the dress perfectly, and her figure was also impeccable. And because of her poor family background, Zhu Xian never wears makeup or does any skin care. Her bare face is usually so stunning. If she dresses up in the future, won't she be as beautiful as a fairy? She is so beautiful that she would be the campus belle in any school. Qianxing just happened to see her when she was most helpless. Would he be considered a man if he didn't have any improper thoughts about her? Qianxing looked around and confirmed that there was no one around. He looked at Zhu Xian and asked, "Sister Xian, you really want to save your mother, right? As your mother's attending physician, I know how anxious you have been these days." Zhu Xian was disgusted by the way Qianxing addressed her, but for her mother's illness, she could only resist the urge to turn around and leave. Zhu Xian tried her best to appear calm and forced a smile. "Dr. Qian, I'm really worried about my mother. If you have anything to say, just tell me." Now she was not in the mood to care about who Qianxing was, she just hoped to cure her mother. Qianxing shook his head and said confidently, "Sister Xian, you don't have to worry about your mother. As your mother's attending physician, I can guarantee that as long as you have money to pay for the medical expenses, there is a 95% chance that she can be cured." Zhu Xian was surprised at first, but then her expression quickly dimmed. Even though she knew her mother could be cured, She couldn't afford the medical expenses for the surgery. Dr. Chen, how long do I have? 2 months. If you still can't afford the surgery fee in another 2 months, your mother will surely die. Qianxing was not lying. Lin Shang's treatment had been delayed again and again. The disease, which could have been completely cured, had become risky. If it was delayed for another 2 months, she would definitely die. 2 months. Zhu Xian's legs went weak when she heard that, and she staggered and almost fell to the ground. She could only quickly hold onto the wall to steady herself. In 2 months, even if she really dropped out of school to work, it would be impossible for her to raise enough money for the surgery, not to mention that she still owed the hospital more than 5,000 yuan. Thinking of this, a strong feeling of powerlessness swept over Zhu Xian's body, almost suffocating her. In the eyes of the children of the powerful, tens of thousands of yuan were just the price of a bottle of wine or a piece of clothing, but to her, it was her mother's life. Sister Xian, I told you, don't be anxious. Come, let's go to my office and talk. Seeing Zhu Xian's despair, Qianxing's eyes showed a gleam of success. Zhu Xian's mood now is exactly what he wants. First give her hope, and then let her fall into despair. At this time, Qianxing only needs to add fuel to the fire, and Zhu Xian will be the lamb to be slaughtered. Thinking of such a beauty becoming his plaything, Qianxing suddenly had an impulse of a dragon raising its head. He no longer suppressed his nature and began to look at Zhu Xian unscrupulously. Seeing Qianxing's eyes full of lust and his true colors revealed, how could Zhu Xian not know what he was thinking? Dr. Qian, you. Zhu Xian was a little scared, but when she thought about her mother dying, she became even more scared. Seeing this, Qianxing stepped forward and grabbed Zhu Xian's wrist, whispering in her ear, "Don't think about running away. You should know what I'm going to do. You only have one chance. Think about it carefully. Is your innocence more important, or your mother's life?" I. Zhu Xian's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She was very resistant and disgusted with Qianxing, but she did not dare to break free from Qianxing's hand. Because Zhu Xian knew that if she rejected Qianxing now, she would no longer be able to save her mother. For a moment, Zhu Xian was in a fierce struggle. She wanted to save her mother, but seeing that Zhu Xian was still a little hesitant, Qianxing immediately added fuel to the fire and said, "Don't worry, I will treat you well in the future. After all, I am young and promising. For you." Before Qianxing could finish his words, he suddenly felt as if a pair of pliers were pinching his wrist. Qianxing screamed in pain. He looked up subconsciously and saw a handsome face that was as cold as ice. "Let go. Let go now." Qianxing's face was distorted with pain and he didn't care what the person looked like. Xu Ling's expression was grim. He grabbed Qianxing's wrist and forcibly released Zhu Xian's wrist, then asked in a deep voice, "What do you want to do?" "Fuck. What do I have to do with you?" Qianxing was filled with great resentment. He was about to marry the beauty, but who would have expected that Cheng Yao Jin would appear out of nowhere? Xu Ling snorted coldly, and the strength in his hands increased. He said, "As a doctor, you should have the heart to save the world, instead of being righteous on the surface and doing shameful things behind the scenes." Qianxing's face turned pale with pain and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He didn't care about hating Xu Ling and begged for mercy repeatedly, "Brother. I was wrong. I was wrong. Please let go." Qianxing was in so much pain that he didn't hear what Xu Ling said at all, but Zhu Xian next to him heard it clearly. Every word Xu Ling said was full of gems. Previously, Qianxing taught Li Yuqian a lesson in the ward, but secretly he was even worse than Li Yuqian. Isn't this hypocritical? Ding! Zhu Xian is full of gratitude and admiration for you. Current favorability, 10. Chapter 22 Good Girl. Xu Ling let go of Qianxing's hand and said coldly, "I'll let you go today, but if you do it again, I'll make sure you're ruined and you won't be able to use your identity as a doctor anymore." Qianxing covered his wrist and stepped back repeatedly. His face was gloomy and he gasped and said, "You ruined my reputation." What a... He got stuck halfway through his sentence because he noticed that Xu Ling looked a bit like someone. Qianxing stared at Xu Ling carefully. After being stunned for 2 seconds, his expression was suddenly filled with horror. He said in a lost voice, "Are you Xu Ling, the eldest young master of the Xu family?" Qianxing had some background in Chening City and had had the honor of meeting Xu Ling more than once, but he remembered that Xu Ling was not so handsome at that time, and his attention was on his wrist just now, so he did not recognize Xu Ling for a while. Xu Ling just frowned and said nothing. An invisible sense of oppression enveloped Qianxing, who had been arrogant, suddenly dared not even breathe. Qianxing's face turned pale. He swallowed and said in a trembling voice, "Mr. Xu, I'm sorry." With Xu Ling's identity, he could kill Qianxing and even the people behind him with just one sentence, and Qianxing actually contradicted Xu Ling. After hearing Qianxing's apology, Xu Ling still had a sullen face and said nothing, and the atmosphere became tense. "Master Xu, I was blind and didn't recognize the great man. I beg you to forgive me." Upon seeing this, Qianxing fell to his knees with a thud. He was so frightened that cold sweat broke out on his back and his heart was broken. If Xu Ling really made a big fuss about this, Qianxing would not only be ruined, but his family might even be destroyed. Xu Ling's expression eased slightly, and he said indifferently, "You can go now." A plain and even insulting remark made Qianxing feel relieved. He almost crawled as he ran away. He fell halfway and quickly got up and continued running, not daring to stop for a moment. Zhu Xiyin looked somewhat shocked. What kind of person was this man who happened to pass by and helped her? How could he make Qianxing, who had a very powerful background in the hospital, kneel down and beg for mercy just by his aura? Seeing Qianxing walking away, Xu Ling turned and looked at Zhu Xiyin. As the heroine of an urban cool novel, Zhu Xiyin's appearance is indeed not inferior to Han Xinyun and Lin Yao. She goes for the pure and weak route, which can easily arouse men's desire to protect her. Zhu Xiyin reacted. She quickly bowed to express her gratitude and said, "Thank you, without your help, I don't know what to do." Zhu Xiyin's mood was complicated at this time. Although Xu Ling saved her, she also missed the only chance to treat her mother. If Zhu Xiyin were given time to calm down and think carefully, she would most likely sell her body in order to cure her mother. After all, in her eyes, her mother's life is more important than anything else, even her own innocence. Now, Zhu Xiyin not only missed the only chance, but also offended the attending doctor who treated her mother. Having said that, Zhu Xiyin would not blame Xu Ling, because Xu Ling was not aware of the situation and was helping out of kindness. What's more, Zhu Xiyin was also struggling internally, and Xu Ling just made the choice for her. As someone who had read novels, Xu Ling naturally knew what Zhu Xiyin was thinking. He brewed his words and said, "If you are seeking revenge at the doctor's club, then you can rest assured. Since he recognized me, he won't dare to have any evil thoughts." Knowing that he has offended the eldest son of the Xu family, Qianxing is probably so scared that he has been living in fear for some time. It is unlikely that he still has any thoughts about Zhu Xiyin. "No, I just..." Zhu Xiyin looked sad. She sighed and seemed to be hesitant to speak. Zhu Xiyin was more worried about her mother than herself. She couldn't raise the medical expenses for her mother's surgery, and even if Qianxing wanted to tamper with the operation, it would be impossible. Xu Ling's eyes revealed worry, and he pretended to be ignorant and asked, "If you don't mind, can you tell me, a stranger, about your troubles?" Since Zhu Xiyin is no match for Han Xinyun, Xu Ling can no longer go the route of a bullshit overbearing CEO. He has to create the image of a warm-hearted older brother who repeatedly helps people in times of need. "No, sir. You helped me. How can I pass on my bad mood to you?" Zhu Xiyin shook her head slightly, and as she spoke she forced a smile, trying her best to appear less negative. Xu Ling was shocked. What a good girl she was. Even though she was in prison, she could still put herself in other people's shoes and think about others. After seeing the scene just now, even a fool would know that Xu Ling has a powerful background, and a powerful background means he is not short of money. If Zhu Xiyin had used her beauty to play up her pity, she might have been able to cheat money to pay for her mother's medical treatment, but she didn't do that, and she didn't even say a word about her predicament. While Xu Ling felt a little emotional, he also couldn't help feeling a little guilty. In order to improve himself, he could only continue to deceive this simple and kind girl until she fell in love with him. Now that Zhu Xiyin is unwilling to show her helplessness, and Xu Ling cannot force her to overcome the difficulties, it seems that the progress of the strategy will have to be slowed down. Xu Ling remained calm on the surface. He took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Zhu Xiyin, saying with a smile, "Since you don't want to tell me, I won't ask. Let me introduce myself. My name is Xu Ling, and this is my business card." Zhu Xiyin nodded and took the business card with both hands, saying apologetically, "My name is Zhu Xiyin, I don't have a business card." Xu Ling shook his head and laughed, waved his hand and said, "It's okay, I have something else to do, so I'll take my leave first. He paused and said casually, by the way, my contact information is on the business card. You can find me if you have any difficulties. Xu Ling had achieved his goal today. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. After Xu Ling left, Zhu Xiang picked up Xu Ling's business card and looked at it. Xu Ling, CEO of Qinxiang Real Estate. Wait, Qinxiang Real Estate. Zhu Xiang was an ordinary citizen and didn't know what aristocratic family was, but she had heard of Qinxiang Real Estate, which was well known in Chening City. Not only in Chening City, Qinxiang Real Estate is a well-known company in the whole country, with a market valuation of over 100 billion yuan. The Yuanyang Seaview Villa district in Chening City belongs to Qinxiang Real Estate. The selling price of each villa is at least 100 million yuan, and it is said that it is not something that can be bought with money. As the CEO of Qinxiang Real Estate, Xu Ling could probably come up with millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions or billions of yuan to pay for Zhu Xiang's mother's medical treatment, let alone tens of thousands of yuan. Zhu Xiang looked at the line of phone numbers below the business card. Her heart was trembling. She never thought that she could actually know such a person. Zhu Xiang came up with the idea of borrowing money from Xu Ling for her mother's medical treatment. After all, this amount of medical expenses was nothing to Xu Ling, and given Xu Ling's kind personality, he would definitely agree to lend it to her. After a brief excitement, Zhu Xiang quickly calmed down. She thought carefully. The medical expenses were indeed nothing to Xu Ling, but they had just met. Why should she ask Xu Ling for money? And even if she borrowed money, how could she pay it back? Zhu Xiang looked at the business card in her hand again and sighed, he is so rich, capable, and friendly. He is really a good person. Although she did not decide to borrow money from Xu Ling, she still carefully put away the business card. Zhu Xiang still doesn't know whether she can raise enough medical expenses for her mother. If she really reaches the desperate situation, this business card will be the only way out. Ding! Zhu Xiang admires you, favorability increased by 5, current favorability, 15. Chapter 23 by family. When Xu Ling heard the system prompt, he was not happy but a little disappointed. He specially timed his arrival to save the damsel in distress, and it took him 15 points to increase her favorability. 15 points of favorability is just an ordinary acquaintance, and there will be no special bonus for increasing favorability in the future. If you want to conquer Zhu Xiang, you will probably need a few more important plots. It's not a big problem. Anyway, my main task today is to prevent Xiao Ming from meeting Zhu Xiang. Xu Ling didn't care much. As long as Zhu Xiang and Xiao Ming didn't know each other, Zhu Xiang would be his sooner or later. Xu Ling was thinking this when he suddenly felt a familiar face flash by. Xiao Ming. Xu Ling narrowed his eyes slightly. If he hadn't looked, the person who just passed by him was Xiao Ming. According to the normal plot, Xiao Ming should have just arrived at the hospital to deal with Zhang Quan's problem, and then met Qianxing harassing Zhu Xiang on the way. Unfortunately, Xu Ling showed up earlier and Xiao Ming had to miss the opportunity to meet Zhu Xiang. Without Zhu Xiang's plot, the next plot should be Xiao Ming rescuing the old patriarch of the Bai family. The Bai family is the second largest family after the Xu family. Although its overall strength is not as good as that of the Xu family, the difference is only a hair's breadth. In the middle of the plot, the Bai family gradually rose with the help of Xiao Ming, and the conflict between Xiao Ming and the Xu family was also escalating. In order to help Xiao Ming solve the trouble, the Bai family joined forces with other forces to bring down the Xu family. It can be said that the Bai family was one of the important factors that led to the downfall of the Xu family. Xu Ling came to the hospital today. In addition to preventing Xiao Ming from meeting Zhu Xiang, he also wanted to prevent Xiao Ming from using his medical skills to save the old patriarch of the Bai family. At the same time Xu Ling discovered Xiao Ming also discovered Xu Ling. Is it him? Why is he here? Xiao Ming felt quite strange. He always felt that it was no coincidence that he ran into Xu Ling here. After going back last time, Xiao Ming carefully investigated Xu Ling's background and found that Xu Ling was a very strange person. How could a master with Shen level cultivation go in and out of the secular world every day and even be obsessed with women? To have reached the Shen level of cultivation at this age, if there had been no adventure, then he must be a descendant of a hidden ancient martial arts family, and he would practice diligently every day. However, the information shows that Xu Ling is just a young master from a secular family, and he either races or goes to entertainment venues every day. He has been a rich second generation who has been living a carefree life since he was a child. First, let's see what his purpose is in coming to the hospital. Thinking of this, Xiao Ming followed Xu Ling with a swagger. Although he was unsure of Xu Ling's strength, this was a hospital and Xu Ling couldn't attack him in public. Xu Ling's heart sank slightly. It seemed that Xiao Ming had begun to pay attention to him and was on alert. Now the two of them are like time bombs tied together. As long as they are ignited by something, they may become enemies fighting for their lives. As an enemy, Xu Ling really didn't want to make enemies with Xiao Ming, because Xiao Ming was too difficult to deal with all kinds of tricks coming out one after another, and he knew when to advance and when to retreat, and he was not a hot-headed reckless man. Now Xiao Ming did not attack Xu Ling, not because he was afraid that Xu Ling might have Shen-level cultivation, but because the hatred between the two was not very deep. Otherwise, with Xiao Ming's identity as a killer, even if he couldn't kill Xu Ling, he would use all kinds of shady tricks to assassinate Xu Ling. In short, he would not let Xu Ling have an easy time. But Xu Ling is destined to be a villain. In order to save his life, he not only has to make an enemy with Xiao Ming, but also has to find a way to kill Xiao Ming. Xu Ling's thoughts were on Xiao Ming behind him, when he suddenly heard a cry coming from the front. Outside an operating room, a delicate and beautiful girl was crying in the arms of a middle-aged woman. Standing next to her were men and women with sad faces, and each of them looked very distinguished. Xu Ling looked at these people. When Xu Ling heard the system prompt, he was not happy but a little disappointed. He specially timed his arrival to save the damsel in distress, and it took him 15 points to increase her favorability. 15 points of favorability is just an ordinary acquaintance, and there will be no special bonus for increasing favorability in the future. If you want to conquer Zhu Saiying, you will probably need a few more important plots. It's not a big problem. Anyway, my main task today is to prevent Xiao Ming from meeting Zhu Saiying. Xu Ling didn't care much. As long as Zhu Saiying and Xiao Ming didn't know each other, Zhu Saiying would be his sooner or later. Xu Ling was thinking this when he suddenly felt a familiar face flash by. Xiao Ming. Xu Ling narrowed his eyes slightly. If he hadn't looked, the person who just passed by him was Xiao Ming. According to the normal plot, Xiao Ming should have just arrived at the hospital to deal with Zhang Quan's problem, and then met Qianxing harassing Zhu Saiying on the way. Unfortunately, Xu Ling showed up earlier and Xiao Ming had to miss the opportunity to meet Zhu Saiying. Without Zhu Saiying's plot, the next plot should be Xiao Ming rescuing the old patriarch of the Bai family. The Bai family is the second largest family after the Xu family. Although its overall strength is not as good as that of the Xu family, the difference is only a hair's breadth. In the middle of the plot, the Bai family gradually rose with the help of Xiao Ming, and the conflict between Xiao Ming and the Xu family was also escalating. In order to help Xiao Ming solve the trouble, the Bai family joined forces with other forces to bring down the Xu family. It can be said that the Bai family was one of the important factors that led to the downfall of the Xu family. Xu Ling came to the hospital today. In addition to preventing Xiao Ming from meeting Zhu Saiying, he also wanted to prevent Xiao Ming from using his medical skills to save the old patriarch of the Bai family. At the same time Xu Ling discovered Xiao Ming also discovered Xu Ling. Is it him? Why is he here? Xiao Ming felt quite strange. He always felt that it was no coincidence that he ran into Xu Ling here. After going back last time, Xiao Ming carefully investigated Xu Ling's background and found that Xu Ling was a very strange person. How could a master with Shen-level cultivation go in and out of the secular world every day and even be obsessed with women? To have reached the Shen level of cultivation at this age, if there had been no adventure, then he must be a descendant of a hidden ancient martial arts family, and he would practice diligently every day. However, the information shows that Xu Ling is just a young master from a secular family, and he either races or goes to entertainment venues every day. He has been a rich second generation who has been living a carefree life since he was a child. First, let's see what his purpose is in coming to the hospital. Thinking of this, Xiao Ming followed Xu Ling with a swagger. Although he was unsure of Xu Ling's strength, this was a hospital and Xu Ling couldn't attack him in public. Xu Ling's heart sank slightly. It seemed that Xiao Ming had begun to pay attention to him and was on alert. Now the two of them are like time bombs tied together. As long as they are ignited by something, they may become enemies fighting for their lives. As an enemy, Xu Ling really didn't want to make enemies with Xiao Ming, because Xiao Ming was too difficult to deal with all kinds of tricks coming out one after another, and he knew when to advance and when to retreat, and he was not a hot-headed reckless man. Now Xiao Ming did not attack Xu Ling, not because he was afraid that Xu Ling might have Shen-level cultivation, but because the hatred between the two was not very deep. Otherwise, with Xiao Ming's identity as a killer, even if he couldn't kill Xu Ling, he would use all kinds of shady tricks to assassinate Xu Ling. In short, he would not let Xu Ling have an easy time. But Xu Ling is destined to be a villain. In order to save his life, he not only has to make an enemy with Xiao Ming, but also has to find a way to kill Xiao Ming. Xu Ling's thoughts were on Xiao Ming behind him, when he suddenly heard a cry coming from the front. Outside an operating room, a delicate and beautiful girl was crying in the arms of a middle-aged woman. Standing next to her were men and women with sad faces, and each of them looked very distinguished. Xu Ling looked at these people. Chapter 24 I Can Save Him. Bai Xiaomu felt as if struck by lightning. Her eyes became unfocused and she collapsed to the ground as if she had lost all her strength. The woman next to her quickly squatted down and supported Bai Xiaomu. She was about to speak to comfort Bai Xiaomu, but when she saw Bai Xiaomu's deathly pale face, she didn't know how to start talking for a moment. The head of the Bai family, Bai Huan, was highly respected and kind. He loved his little granddaughter, Bai Xiaomu, the most. Now that the old head of the Bai family has passed away due to illness, Bai Xiaomu is probably the one who is most saddened. A man in a suit and leather shoes rushed out from the crowd of the Bai family. He rushed forward and grabbed the doctor's collar, shouting with grief and anger on his face, "Bullshit! What's the use of gods and immortals saving him? I think it's your poor medical skills that killed Grandpa." The doctor was startled and explained hurriedly, "Sir, please calm down. Patriarch Bai's illness has never occurred before. What exactly is the disease is still to be studied. Now, not to mention me, even the best doctors in the world may not be able to save him. As a doctor, he may not have the spirit of self-sacrifice, but he also has a compassionate heart. If there is a way, he will definitely do his best to save the old master Bai." A middle-aged man with a steady face stepped forward and held the man in the suit's shoulder, saying in a deep voice, "Jifeng, calm down. It has been a long time since the old master of the Bai family has suffered from a strange disease, and everyone in the Bai family knows about it. If it could be cured, it would have been cured long ago." Bai Jifeng's action is undoubtedly to vent his anger on the doctor. The Bai family is a well-known large family in Chening City. Bai Jifeng's irrational behavior in a crowded place like a hospital will only ruin the reputation of the Bai family. "Dad. Could it be that Grandpa died in such an unclear way?" Bai Jifeng's eyes were red, he clenched his teeth, and after a struggle in his heart he finally let go of the doctor. Bai Jifeng knew that Patriarch Bai's illness was strange, but Patriarch Bai passed away too suddenly, and he really couldn't accept it. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed. He was more sad than Bai Jifeng about his father's death, but he didn't show it. Bai Xiaomu, who was sitting on the ground, didn't know where she found the strength. She raised her hand tremblingly and grabbed the doctor's clothes. She said in a hoarse voice, "Doctor, there must be some way. Xiaomu begs you, please save my grandfather." Bai Xiaomu felt as if struck by lightning. Her eyes became unfocused and she collapsed to the ground as if she had lost all her strength. The woman next to her quickly squatted down and supported Bai Xiaomu. She was about to speak to comfort Bai Xiaomu, but when she saw Bai Xiaomu's deathly pale face, she didn't know how to start talking for a moment. The head of the Bai family, Bai Huan, was highly respected and kind. He loved his little granddaughter, Bai Xiaomu, the most. Now that the old head of the Bai family has passed away due to illness, Bai Xiaomu is probably the one who is most saddened. A man in a suit and leather shoes rushed out from the crowd of the Bai family. He rushed forward and grabbed the doctor's collar, shouting with grief and anger on his face, "Bullshit! What's the use of gods and immortals saving him? I think it's your poor medical skills that killed Grandpa." The doctor was startled and explained hurriedly, "Sir, please calm down. Patriarch Bai's illness has never occurred before. What exactly is the disease is still to be studied. Now, not to mention me, even the best doctors in the world may not be able to save him. As a doctor, he may not have the spirit of self-sacrifice, but he also has a compassionate heart. If there is a way, he will definitely do his best to save the old master Bai." A middle-aged man with a steady face stepped forward and held the man in the suit's shoulder, saying in a deep voice, "Jifeng, calm down. It has been a long time since the old master of the Bai family has suffered from a strange disease, and everyone in the Bai family knows about it. If it could be cured, it would have been cured long ago." Bai Jifeng's action is undoubtedly to vent his anger on the doctor. The Bai family is a well-known large family in Chening City. Bai Jifeng's irrational behavior in a crowded place like a hospital will only ruin the reputation of the Bai family. Dad. Could it be that Grandpa died in such an unclear way? Bai Jifeng's eyes were red, he clenched his teeth, and after a struggle in his heart he finally let go of the doctor. Bai Jifeng knew that Patriarch Bai's illness was strange, but Patriarch Bai passed away too suddenly, and he really couldn't accept it. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed. He was more sad than Bai Jifeng about his father's death, but he didn't show it. Bai Shamu, who was sitting on the ground, didn't know where she found the strength. She raised her hand tremblingly and grabbed the doctor's clothes. She said in a hoarse voice, "Doctor, there must be some way. Shamu begs you, please save my grandfather." Bai Shamu felt as if struck by lightning. Her eyes became unfocused and she collapsed to the ground as if she had lost all her strength. The woman next to her quickly squatted down and supported Bai Shamu. She was about to speak to comfort Bai Shamu, but when she saw Bai Shamu's deathly pale face, she didn't know how to start talking for a moment. The head of the Bai family, Bai Huan, was highly respected and kind. He loved his little granddaughter, Bai Shamu, the most. Now that the old head of the Bai family has passed away due to illness, Bai Shamu is probably the one who is most saddened. A man in a suit and leather shoes rushed out from the crowd of the Bai family. He rushed forward and grabbed the doctor's collar, shouting with grief and anger on his face, "Bullshit! What's the use of gods and immortals saving him? I think it's your poor medical skills that killed Grandpa." The doctor was startled and explained hurriedly, "Sir, please calm down. Patriarch Bai's illness has never occurred before. What exactly is the disease is still to be studied. Now, not to mention me, even the best doctors in the world may not be able to save him. As a doctor, he may not have the spirit of self-sacrifice, but he also has a compassionate heart. If there is a way, he will definitely do his best to save the old Master Bai." A middle-aged man with a steady face stepped forward and held the man in the suit's shoulder, saying in a deep voice, "Jifeng, calm down. It has been a long time since the old master of the Bai family has suffered from a strange disease, and everyone in the Bai family knows about it. If it could be cured, it would have been cured long ago." Bai Jifeng's action is undoubtedly to vent his anger on the doctor. The Bai family is a well-known large family in Chening City. Bai Jifeng's irrational behavior in a crowded place like a hospital will only ruin the reputation of the Bai family. Dad. Could it be that Grandpa died in such an unclear way? Bai Jifeng's eyes were red, he clenched his teeth, and after a struggle in his heart he finally let go of the doctor. Bai Jifeng knew that Patriarch Bai's illness was strange, but Patriarch Bai passed away too suddenly, and he really couldn't accept it. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed. He was more sad than Bai Jifeng about his father's death, but he didn't show it. Bai Shamu, who was sitting on the ground, didn't know where she found the strength. She raised her hand tremblingly and grabbed the doctor's clothes. She said in a hoarse voice, "Doctor, there must be some way. Shamu begs you, please save my grandfather." Chapter 25, Plundering the Protagonist's Opportunity. Xu Ling smiled. He could see that the middle-aged man had already agreed with his idea of going to treat the old Master Bai. Bai Shamu's words were just giving the middle-aged man a way out. The middle-aged man sighed deeply. At this point, he had to believe it whether he wanted to or not. Bai Jifeng hurriedly stopped Xu Ling and shouted in disbelief, "Dad! Xiao Mu! Are you crazy? You actually let this loser treat Grandpa?" Everyone in the Bai family fell silent. They didn't believe that Xu Ling had any way to cure the old Patriarch Bai, but what other method did they have? Xu Ling frowned slightly, pushed away Bai Jifeng who was blocking his way, and walked towards the operating room. Xu Ling used a little strength in this blow, and Bai Jifeng was pushed so hard that he staggered a few steps and almost fell to the ground. Others looked at him as if he was trying to scam someone. Bai Jifeng steadied himself and looked back at Xu Ling, a hint of doubt in his eyes. Although he was very unhappy with Xu Ling, he had not let his anger overwhelm his reason. In his memory, Xu Ling did nothing all day and never exercised, so how could he have such great strength? "Well, if it weren't for you, I'd like to see how you explain it to Grandpa." Seeing that he was no match for Xu Ling, Bai Jifeng did not continue to stop Xu Ling. In fact, he also hoped that someone could cure the old Master Bai, but Xu Ling was really hard to convince. Xiao Ming looked puzzled. He stood among the crowd and watched Xu Ling step into the operating room step by step. "Xu Ling, I want to see what you are up to." The Bai family has hired many famous doctors, but none of them could cure the disease. Why is Xu Ling so confident that he can cure it when he hasn't even seen the disease? Before returning to China, Xiaoming thought that with his strength, few people in the secular world could pose a threat to him, but everything that happened to Xu Ling really made him unable to see through it. After entering the operating room, Xu Ling drove away other doctors and stayed in the operating room alone. On the operating table, there lay an old man with his eyes closed and sunken eye sockets. His face was blue and it was obvious that he would not live long. This person is none other than the former patriarch of the Bai family, Bai Huan. On the surface, Bai Huan was just too weak, but no matter what method was used, it was impossible to detect what disease he had. As time went on, Bai Huan's body became weaker and weaker, until today when the illness finally broke out. If he didn't get treatment within an hour, he would surely die. Xu Ling, who had read the novel, knew very well that Bai Huan was not actually sick, but was poisoned by a chronic GU, and the cause was related to an enemy from decades ago. This plot serves as a prelude, pushing the novel away from the urban plot and into the mid-plot. Now that Xu Ling has saved the old patriarch Bai, I wonder how the subsequent plot will develop. Xiaoming, you have no foundation in the country. Now that you don't have the support of the Bai family, I will kill you without any scruples. Xiaoming was still confused about Xu Ling, but he didn't know that Xu Ling's appearance had disrupted all the plots. If Xiaoming was slow to react, he would die at Xu Ling's hands in no time. Xu Ling walked to the operating table, expended 10 points of energy to perform the skill 9 fingers of rejuvenation, and quickly pressed 9 acupoints on Bai Huan with his fingers 9 times. Then he mobilized the strength in his body and hit Bai Huan in the heart with a palm. Puff! Bai Huan, who was in a coma, opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. His complexion instantly became much better. The life-demanding poison is unfathomable to ordinary doctors, but it is not a big problem for warriors. The 9 fingers of rejuvenation is far inferior to the Ghost Valley needle that the protagonist is equipped with, but it is enough to cure Bai Huan. Xu Ling speculated that Bai Huan should be able to wake up within 10 minutes. He did not cure Bai Huan directly, but only managed to save him. He would probably need to perform the 9 fingers of rejuvenation twice more to cure him. Are you kidding? If he cured Bai Huan directly, how would he find opportunities to improve Bai Shemu's favorability? About 10 minutes later, outside the operating room, everyone in the Bai family was still waiting for Xu Ling with worried faces. Bai Zhifeng looked gloomy and kept pacing back and forth at the door of the operating room. Bai Shemu stood quietly outside the operating room, her eyes never leaving the operating room, her expression filled with anxiety, anticipation, and nervousness. Seeing that Xu Ling hadn't come out yet, Bai Zhifeng became more and more anxious. He stopped and looked at the middle-aged man, and said in a very aggrieved tone, "Dad, I really don't understand you. Why did you agree to let that loser save Grandpa?" The middle-aged man had a sullen face and said nothing. He was in a very anxious mood, and became even more annoyed after being messed around by Bai Zhifeng. At this moment, the door of the operating room was opened, and Xu Ling walked out slowly. He looked at Bai Zhifeng standing at the door and said unhappily, "Bai Zhifeng, don't you hope your grandfather gets better at all? It's not that I don't wish Grandpa well, but for a loser like you who only knows how to eat, drink and have fun, how could it be possible?" Bai Zhifeng stopped talking halfway, and in the eyes of everyone filled with joy and shock, the old master of the Bai family actually followed him out of the operating room. The people in the Bai family knew the old patriarch Bai's illness best, so they were naturally more shocked than ordinary people. The health of the old master Bai had always been weak, and he was on the verge of death before being sent to the hospital. He was tired even to speak a word, let alone walk. Now, not only can the old master Bai walk on his own, his complexion also looks much better. "Grandpa, you actually..." Bai Zhifeng's expression was full of surprise, and for a moment he forgot to be angry with Xu Ling. Xu Ling snorted coldly and said, "Bai Zhifeng, who is the waste now?" "Xu Ling, you..." "Bai Zhifeng?" Bai Zhifeng was about to speak when he was hit hard on the head by the middle-aged man. Bai Zhifeng grimaced in pain, covered the back of his head and quickly stepped aside. "Father, are you really okay?" The middle-aged man looked worried and quickly stepped forward to help Bai Huan. Bai Huan raised his hand to stop the middle-aged man, and said with a broad smile, "Old man, I am not only fine, I am very fine." The middle-aged man breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this. Although he didn't know what method Xu Ling used, he finally cured his father. He then looked at Xu Ling, bowed and thanked him, saying, "Nephew Xu, I apologize for any offense I caused you before. You cured my father, and this kindness will be forever unforgettable in our Bai family." The middle-aged man gave a look as he spoke, and everyone in the Bai family came forward to thank Xu Ling, including Bai Zhifeng. Ding! Successfully plundered the protagonist's opportunity, rewarded with 300 luck points, 100 villain points, and the protagonist's luck value decreased by 500. Ding! Bai Xiaomu is so grateful to you, the favorability increases by 40, current favorability, 40. Fuck, 100 villain points. Xu Ling was pleasantly surprised, this was 100 villain points, not image points. 100 villain points are enough to upgrade a level 1 skill, which can only be redeemed with 1000 image points, but now 100 points are given away at once. Wait a minute, system, why did Bai Xiaomu's favorability increase by 40 points? With the reward of 100 villain points in front of him, Xu Ling didn't react for a moment. Although he saved Bai Xiaomu's grandfather, it shouldn't be possible to increase his favorability by 40 points at once, right? The 40-point favorability level reaches the level of closeness, and Xu Ling is only 20 points away from completing the initial strategy. Chapter 26 Strategy Difficulty. System prompt: the difficulty of conquering a heroine is divided into 6 levels, based on the heroine's personality, the conquering environment, the normal plot status, etc., from bottom to top. Throwing oneself into someone's arms, easy; scheming, pure as ice and jade; chaste and heroic, pure and flawless. Bai Xiaomu's strategy difficulty is easy. TSK, such a beautiful woman is so easy to get. If she is one of the main female characters, the difficulty won't be so low, right? Xu Ling felt a little emotional but not sad at all. After all, it was a good thing for him that Bai Xiaomu's strategy was not difficult. By the way, system, what is the difficulty of Han Xinyan's strategy? Han Xinyan's strategy difficulty is pure as ice and jade. Xu Ling was stunned. Han Xinyan was the heroine in the book, and also an icy beauty with a cold personality. How could the difficulty of conquering her be so pure and innocent? It took Xu Ling a lot of effort just to make her pure and innocent. Wouldn't it be extremely difficult to conquer a heroine with a higher level of difficulty? Nephew Xu, what are you doing? At this moment, a voice came, interrupting Xu Ling's thoughts. Xu Ling came back to his senses, looked at the middle-aged man, shook his head and said, "Nothing, I was just thinking about how I can use my condition." The middle-aged man's expression froze. His mind was full of his father's recovery, and he had forgotten that Xu Ling had said that curing his father required the Bai family to agree to a condition. Xu Ling cured the highly respected old patriarch Bai, so everyone in the Bai family was naturally very grateful. But if he took the opportunity to make excessive demands, the Bai family would be in a dilemma and unable to say anything. For example, if Xu Ling asked for half of the Bai family's property, how could the Bai family afford it? But Xu Ling cured the old Bai family first, and if the Bai family did not agree to his conditions, they would definitely be known as going back on their word. Under the tense gaze of the Bai family, Xu Ling lowered his head and pondered for a while, then raised his head and looked around at the Bai family, and said word by word, "My condition is that from now on, your Bai family must be on good terms with my Bai family for the next 30 years. That's it." The middle-aged man was stunned. The relationship between the Bai family and the Xu family was not very good, and the Bai family was slightly weaker than the Xu family. He had been thinking about how to ease the relationship. Xu Ling's condition was not only no loss to the Bai family, but also a good thing. Speaking of which, the Bai family once had the idea of promoting a marriage between Bai Xiaomu and Xu Ling, but unfortunately Xu Ling only had Han Xinyun in his eyes at the time, and was a real bootlicker. Xu Ling was stunned. Isn't this a difficult task for the Bai family? I should have asked the Bai family to give Bai Xiaomu to me as a concubine. He secretly thought it was a pity. The Bai family's power was second only to the Xu family, and such good opportunities were rare. Xu Ling shook his head and soon felt relieved. It was extremely easy to conquer Bai Xiaomu, and he would be his sooner or later. He proposed this condition mainly to cut off the possibility of Xiao Ming using the Bai family to deal with the Xu family. Thinking of this, Xu Ling smiled and said in a friendly manner, "What else? Uncle Bai, do you think I want to ask for too much?" He paused, looked at Bai Huan beside him and continued, "In fact, I have admired Mr. Bai for a long time. I have no other purpose in saving him today, but I don't want the world to lose another respected old man." Bai Huan stroked his beard and laughed heartily. He patted Xu Ling on the shoulder and praised him, "Good. Good. I had heard that the only son of the Shu family was a playboy, uneducated, and eccentric. Now it seems that it was all just slander from some scoundrels. Everyone in the Bai family nodded in agreement. With Xu Ling's unparalleled medical skills, how could he be as unlearned as the rumors said? Ding! Bai Xiaomu admires you, favorability increased by 15, current favorability, 55. If there is nothing else, Xu Ling will take his leave first. By the way, Mr. Bai's illness has not been completely cured. He will need about 2 courses of treatment. When the time comes, I will come to treat Mr. Bai. Then I'll leave it to nephew Xu. The Bai family wanted to keep Xu Ling and talk to him, but Xu Ling didn't want to waste time on dealing with them. After saying goodbye to the Bai family, he left the hospital directly. As for Bai Huan's treatment course, Xu Ling can treat him whenever he wants. When the time is right, he will go to cure Bai Huan and accept Bai Xiaomu at the same time. No way. Who is that guy? He actually cured the disease. You don't know, right? He is the prince of our Chening city, the eldest son of the Shu family. This young man has great medical skills. I wonder if he can cure my relative's illness. If he can, I will spend all my money to help him. There was a commotion among the crowd. After witnessing Xu Ling's superb medical skills, they all wanted to ask Xu Ling to save their relatives in the hospital. Unfortunately, Xu Ling had anticipated this and left the hospital before everyone could react. Xiao Ming stood among the crowd, frowning and puzzled. At the beginning, Xu Ling's attitude towards the Bai family was not so good. Why did his attitude change 180 degrees after he proposed the conditions? Did he really just want to cure Bai Huan, or did he have other plans? After leaving the hospital, Xu Ling was about to leave by car when he suddenly found someone following him. He turned around and found that the person coming was Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming frowned and looked directly at Xu Ling, and asked straight to the point, "Xu Ling, who are you? What is your purpose?" Xu Ling spread his hands and pretended to be puzzled and asked, "Brother, why are you here again? What's your purpose? Are you too suspicious?" Now his strength is not as good as Xiao Ming, so hiding his purpose is the best approach. Xiao Ming's expression was slightly gloomy. Chapter 27. Lin Yao is not simple. After leaving the hospital, Xu Ling's next step was to find a way to conquer Han Xinyun or Zhu Xiyin as soon as possible. There is still a long time before Han Xinyun's key plot happens, and there are only some plots about Zhu Xiyin recently. Before I take down Han Xinyun, I'd better not attract Bai Xiaomu's attention. Otherwise, if she or Lin Yao finds out, I'll be finished. Xu Ling's secret plan to capture Zhu Xiyin will not be discovered, but Bai Xiaomu is the eldest daughter of the Bai family. If he succeeds in taking Bai Xiaomu down, the news will definitely spread. If Xu Ling wants to conquer Bai Xiaomu, he still has to raise Han Xinyun and Lin Yao's favorability to 100 first. System, it's too difficult to break through the 99 to 100 favorability level. Is there any special technique? Xu Ling found that it was not difficult to increase the favorability normally, but it was too difficult to break through from 99 to 100. He had been with Lin Yao for so long, but his level was still stuck at 99. System tips, there is no shortcut to reach 99-100 favorability. You can only break through the favorability by touching the heroine's heart. If the heroine is completely fallen, the 99-100 favorability breakthrough rate will be greatly improved. So, Han Xinyun's chance of breaking through 100 is easier than Lin Yao's. Just as Xu Ling was thinking this, someone suddenly sent a WeChat message to his mobile phone. He opened his phone and saw that it was from Lin Yao. The message read, "Brother A Ling, I'm going to Chinker Plaza to buy some clothes later. Can you go with me?" Xu Ling was a little surprised. This seemed to be the first time that Lin Yao took the initiative to invite him out. The message was sent an hour ago, and the most recent message was 20 minutes ago. Lin Yao said that she had arrived at Chinker Plaza, and if Xu Ling wanted to go, please notify her. Xu Ling thought about it and sent a text, "I was busy just now and didn't see the message. I'll be there soon." Now that the hospital matters have been dealt with, he has nothing else to do, so it would be better for him to accompany Lin Yao for a while. Not long after, Xu Ling rushed to Chinker Square and looked for Lin Yao in the crowd. "Brother A Ling, here. Here." Not long after walking away, Xu Ling saw Lin Yao waving her hands at him. He walked over and saw that Han Xinyun was there too. Both women were carrying their hands full of clothes, cosmetics, etc. Seeing Xu Ling coming, Han Xinyun looked a little unnatural. She lifted her hair to hide her nervousness and said, Shu Ling? Why are you here? Shu Ling couldn't help but laugh. He stepped forward and took the things from Lin Yao's hand and said, I'm Yao's boyfriend. Isn't it normal for me to go shopping with her? Han Xinyun's expression froze when he heard this, and he subconsciously glanced at Lin Yao beside him. She quickly came to her senses, quickly withdrew her gaze, nodded silently and said nothing more. Lin Yao was a little sensitive to begin with, and now seeing Han Xinyun's reaction, she became even more certain of her suspicions. She looked at Han Xinyun, hesitant to speak, her expression a little complicated, and in the end she said nothing. What's going on? Shu Ling quickly noticed that something was wrong with the atmosphere. Why did the two women suddenly become silent? While the two women were still in shock, he quietly opened the heroine's panel and took a look. Han Xinyun, the main female lead. The female lead is in a state of fall. Strategy difficulty, pure and pure. Favorability, 76. I am attracted to you. External basic personality, cold, strong, decisive. Inner basic character, weak, kind, considerate. Favorability towards the protagonist, 19. Strategy tips page. The strategy for 8 heroines is unlocked and can be tried once. Check the strategy tips for the 3 heroines. Shu Ling was stunned. It turned out that there were strategy hints, but he didn't notice it at first. Lin Yao, heroine already conquered. Strategy difficulty, throw yourself into your arms. Favorability, 99. External basic personality, weak, simple, innocent. Inner basic personality, strong, sensitive, shy. Favorability towards the protagonist, 0. Lin Yao is a sensitive girl? Why didn't I see that before? She is said to be innocent only on the outside, isn't she actually innocent? Shu Ling recalled his time with Lin Yao, and his heart skipped a beat. If Lin Yao was a smart and sensitive person, she would definitely be able to guess that there was something unclear between him and Han Xinyun. Never mind, let's use this strategy tip to look at the two of them first. System prompt, confirm to try the strategy hint once. Ding! Confirm success, the simple strategy page is being created for you. It costs 1000 luck points to open the detailed strategy prompt. Han Xinyun strategy tips, Han Xinyun is completely conquered. The host only needs to show his manly side to gradually improve his favorability. The subsequent kidnapping plot by their hostile company has a chance to break through 100 favorability. Lin Yao's strategy tips, the heroine has been completely conquered. There will be no key plots later. The host needs to completely touch Lin Yao's heart and make Lin Yao confirm that you are her lifelong destination. Only then can the favorability break through 100. This is a rip-off. It takes 1000 luck points to unlock the detailed guide. How many luck points do I have now? Shu Ling's mouth twitched. He didn't know how to touch Lin Yao's heart. The question was how to touch Lin Yao's heart. The prompts given by the system were completely useless. Shu Ling had wasted 2 opportunities to check for tips on how to find the heroine. Why are you all standing there? Let's go and take a look over there. By the way, Sister Xinyun, give your things to Brother Ling. He's very strong. Lin Yao suddenly spoke, and Han Xinyun, who was daydreaming, and Shu Ling, who was thinking about what to do with the 2 women, came back to their senses. Han Xinyun glanced at the pile of things in his hand and said tactfully, "This is not good, right? What's wrong with that? Brother Ling is my boyfriend, he won't let my friend suffer, right Brother Ling?" Lin Yao was out of character and became very lively and cheerful, emphasizing the words, "my boyfriend," when she spoke. It's just a gift. It's what I should do. Shu Ling was stunned. As a martial artist with great skills, it was no problem for him to lift a pile of iron with one hand, let alone some bags of cosmetics and clothes. However, Lin Yao would never take the initiative to ask Shu Ling to do these things, and would never say such things as a girlfriend, which made Shu Ling a little difficult to adapt to. Han Xinyun pursed her lips lightly when she heard this, a hint of disappointment flashed across her eyes, and she whispered, "Okay." Seeing the slight disappointment in Han Xinyun's eyes, Shu Ling immediately reacted and thought to himself, Lin Yao, this little girl, can actually be so scheming. Women are really not simple.